Yeah, you're right there, John. There are 2 pages of signatures, and that means there are 2 missing because they were double-sided.
That's all right.
Well, first item on the agenda is unanticipated. Does anybody, I anticipate something under unanticipated. Does anybody have anything under unanticipated? Okay.
Hi there.
Good evening, sir. May you introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. My name is Glenn Montepert. I am the Vice Chair of the Middleborough G&E Commission, Board of Commissioners, and I'd like to have a moment. Thank you for hearing me at this time, and thank you, Chairman, for inviting me up here to speak. I wanted to stand here and speak to you about the trash train. The trash train that parks underneath one of the overpasses and parks near the Middleborough G&E gas plant. There's been 2 fires this past year, one on June 5th and one also on August 20th. I know the August 20th one took 2.5 hours of our fire department at the site, at the location. And I have been working with the town manager, and we have tried to contact the trash train management, requesting them to move the trash train. It doesn't make sense for it to be under an overpass when it's going to be having fires, and it doesn't make sense to be next to the town gas plant. Heaven forbid people use common sense. It's a town gas plant. It's been 3 months now since the last fire, and they're still parking there. Evidently, it's another case where this group is just blowing off the town and not responding to our requests. We are the 2nd largest municipality in Massachusetts. We have some muscle, don't we? If there's got to be a way to tell the trash train that to park underneath an overpass or to park near the gas plant is bad. It's as simple as that. I have ideas. I propose to get, I'd like to be a pain in their butt. If we can possibly have maybe the police stop the engineer from getting out of the train when he wants to park there. Maybe have a court order for safety not to park there. Maybe call Homeland Security. Maybe something. There should be something more we can do instead of just calling them and saying, well, they never got back to us. So please know that I am not dumping this on you. How can I help you? What can I do? Who can I nag? I mean, you guys, you're working hard already. You're supporting this town. Use me. There's got to be something I can do to assist, to push this forward. And allow me to help you.
Okay, so without getting into the really bad jokes, the concern is a very viable one, because not only does that train have trash, it also does have tank cars of various chemistry, and we wouldn't want to have something bad happen down there.
Absolutely.
And it's not a good, you're right, it's not a good idea to have it park under an overpass. And it's also not good to have it parked next to the gas plant itself. So that's a Conrail, is that Conrail? Or is that Conrail?
No, the chief has been the one trying to make contact with them. I can find out who he's been in touch with. You may be Mass Coastal. I'm not exactly sure who's responsible for this this particular train.
It's a Stephen King dream, isn't it?
Mm.
But can you make contact with the necessary people and have
I'll
them,
get Glenn the names, and he's welcome to nag them as much as he can.
You certainly have.
I love this. This is great.
It's not to say that I wouldn't rather you have you nag us, but nagging them is better. So.
I agree. I agree. I know you guys have a full plate, and I do appreciate all that you guys do.
But I think we should. The Board of Selectmen should also be sending letters and making calls to get them to recognize the problem of what they're creating. They could be creating.
Okay.
So
Who do I work
You-
in conjunction with so
you
I'm
can-
not doing something wrong with you guys?
So,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
the Citizens Health Impact Committee has been looking at this for the past couple of months as well. And we had requested that our health officer go out there, and she's taken a look. We've gotten the fire reports from the chief. I think having Charlie get you that information, it sounds like we need to set up a meeting.
You want to run that? You want to take care of that?
Can we
Sure.
join forces and
I
have
think
someone
that-
from the,
right.
myself from the G&E, someone from your committee, someone from the board, and say, look how united we are?
Yeah,
It's
I
time to
think
do something?
that issue might already have a home in that committee, so, working it through there with the
Okay,
backing
then
of
you
the
want to take,
selectmen.
you want to take lead on that as
Sure.
far as the board goes, conjunction with board and CHECI, whatever you called it?
Yep.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anything?
Unexpected number 2.
You would be number 2.
I'm
You would be
Darlene
number 1,
Parsons.
but
Well, I'll be number 1.
trash takes
Darlene
precedence.
Parsons. I live on Rocky Meadow Street. And on November 5th, I was woken up by some very large machines out in my backyard, clear cutting my yard. It was N-Star. I had no idea, which I feel that there should have been a town meeting if it was going to be something this drastic. I had no idea about this. I called the police, saying there's somebody out in my backyard. I feel like I'm experiencing Fern Gully, which you didn't understand the reference, but anyway. 70-foot pine trees are dropping all over my yard. I lost 68 trees. I did go out there, in a bright red sweater and waved the man down and told him to stop and asked who he was. He was N-Star, and he said he was clear cutting. Now I have an easement. Goldie Fagerberg's easements were very irregularly marked. Mine goes way out. I have over an acre, and they were cutting down my trees. Like I said, I lost 68. And I just feel like, first of all, there should have been a town meeting to let people know about this, because this is huge. The value of your land goes down, not to mention the environmental stuff. I have a cart path diagonally through my yard, which wasn't even discussed. The man from N-Star came out and not only mentioned, when I mentioned to him I'm going to stand in front of my tree, he said, I've arrested people before. He also asked me if I have had silver bracelets on, which I jokingly said, yeah, my husband loves to buy me jewelry. So I referenced that as a threat. When I called the police, I was told to call the town manager, which I did, and the police, and the town rep, and take pictures. I did all of the above. I have since been able to stop them for whatever reason, probably because I've gone out there every day sitting there. I was interviewed by Channel 4, Hank Philippi Ryan. I met her at the library, and we've been emailing back and forth, but I just feel like the town, with something this huge, should have definitely let people know. The turtles have been impacted. The value of people's property, Cottonwood Drive or Circle, huge. Property land, the property has gone down in value. This is something that's impacted us all. I've lived there for 28 years. They have always cleared the easement and never been this aggressive. And that's one of the things Mr. The town manager there had mentioned, that he didn't think they were going to be that aggressive. I do think that should have been brought up, because this is huge. And I've forbidden them to come into my yard. I now have a big, huge mess of trees, which I'm probably going to deal with them on my own. But what responsibility should the town have taken, and why didn't you?
First of all, it's an easement.
Mhm.
The,
No measurements.
Right
No
away.
survey was ever done.
well,
Okay.
that's what we're hearing,
Mhm.
but the easement, and I was at the meeting Thursday night, there was a discussion about how the easement's written,
Mhm.
the language. One of the easements was very clear and concise that N-Star could cut down any growth at all on that land.
Okay.
Now, one thing that was mentioned was, how does anybody know exactly where that easement is?
Right.
And that's probably the only thing that a landowner can fight. It's not a town issue, though. We can't fight it.
But you should have told us.
Well-
This is huge, and it affects our taxes, the property of our land. the turtles, the
Right.
cart path, which is an Indian cart path that's on every deed I own that says right away. So, I mean, that's pretty significant, and I really think that warrants a meeting, you know, to let people know. I never got any notice. Supposedly, they did these little hanger things on the door, never got one.
You never got
And they handed it to me the day that they had already chopped down 68 of my trees.
Right.
It's probably more, I just haven't allowed them to clear the rest.
Right.
You know, if it was your property, you'd be as angry
I'd
as
be
I
as
am.
angry as you are,
Right.
definitely.
Mr. Chairman, I happen to agree. I think we relied on NSTAR to do the right thing in this endeavor, and they really didn't. I was certainly on the impression that they were going to notify people via mail. It turns out they hung things on trees and left cards on doorsteps, which many people didn't ever see. That's the reason that there's pending legislation and regulations addressing this topic, because of the inadequate notice that, perhaps it was legal, but it wasn't right. You know, people shouldn't have been woken up by heavy machinery taking down trees on their property, even if there are easements. So I think if we knew how they operated, and you know, we were as surprised as everybody else by the extent of the clearing that they did, I would certainly have advocated to have a meeting and try to inform the public. But again, you know, in the telephone conversations that we had with them, we were being assured that they would work with residents and that they would work things out and they would do it on an individual basis. But, you know, I think what we're coming to find is that they're really not. You know, they're not doing anything of the kind. They're cutting in and just clearing everything and offering very little.
The thing is, Newton stopped them. Newton, I have actually a copy of the letter that they addressed to the CEO of NSTAR. It's very, like, general, and if you folks could send this to them, you can look it over. I have quite a few copies. It's just very vague. It just says that you need to notify us. You need to, you know, there's 250-year-old trees that are being cut down. The turtles that they relocated, I asked the man, they didn't relocate them, you know? I mean, people have found little baby turtles in their backyards and so forth. You know, so anyway, if you want a copy of the letter, I'd be more than happy to, you know, it may be not too late for the people
Just
further
tell me,
down.
Yeah, I have it.
Okay?
Yeah,
Excellent.
it's Needham,
Thank you.
actually.
Thank you very much.
Just to reiterate what Adam Bond, 8 Rock Street, just to reiterate what Chairman McKinnon was saying. On Thursday, the advice that was given by the reps and by Chairman McKinnon and some other people was that if communication can be opened, I think that NSTAR failed miserably in communicating, but I think NSTAR probably did pretty much what it wanted to do. The town, had it known, because we don't have the proper bylaws in place, couldn't really have done anything to interfere with the private contractual relationship that exists. I mean, one of the things that I talked to Chairman McKinnon about after that meeting was that maybe they can't do what nobody else can do on that land. They're still subject to the same restrictions as the landowner. And maybe there needs to be, just like we have some clearing bylaws with regard to dirt removal and things like that, maybe we need something more general in our town, that if you're going to clear more than X amount of trees, you need to come before the Board of Selectmen to discuss the manner, times, and dates in which you're going to do it, and possibly throw in some kind of a noise bylaw that might, I mean, these machines, I assume, make a lot of noise? You know, dates, times, and notices for when you're going to do some activity that goes beyond it. But the thing I just wanted to tell people, which we told them on Thursday, was insist upon a survey. Insist upon one. And insist upon keeping your wood. If you can't take the wood away, there are a whole bunch of tree cutters in Middleborough that would be more than happy to take it away, and you can keep that money local. But Mr. McKinnon is correct. The easements, the language of the easements was it gave them absolute authority on those trees.
And that is something when you buy a piece of property, you know, they give you they say there's an easement on it. You read through that, but you don't anticipate, you know, it just doesn't strike you as to what it is. Sir.
Hi, my name is Bill Kennerson. I live at 28 Cottonwood Circle. And I'd like to express my extreme disappointment with all of you people in front of me right now. I spoke to Charlie 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago. I believe Alan Frawley, was it you? Same time? We got nothing. The town of Needham went through the same thing. All the townspeople got together with the selectmen in that town, and they stopped NSTAR. I didn't see any of this happen here. I spoke various times to various people and got nowhere. And I didn't see anybody in front of me do anything to help us. Make a few phone calls, yes. Stand up for the townspeople, no. That's all I have to say.
Excuse me, sir. I called all 3 of our state reps.
Yep,
I tried to get in touch with NSTAR. I
Yes.
did everything I could to get in
Okay.
touch with NSTAR, and I got no response.
Okay.
I was under the assumption that there was going to be, or not under the, I was under the impression that there was going to be a meeting between NSTAR and the residents of at least Amanda Drive. I went out to Amanda Drive and I looked at it. Unfortunately, the town doesn't have a lot of leverage with NSTAR. Quite literally, they don't have to talk to us.
I understand that, but how did Needham get them stopped? They stood up to him.
And
We
I
didn't-
certainly
we didn't.
encourage you
I
to
didn't see
stand up to
them
them.
as a whole. All they did was sent them a letter from the selectmen and a few representatives in the area. Did that happen here? No. I'd like to know why, now that I'm standing here. Why didn't that happen?
Well, I think the answer is that, except for Needham, the experience of all the other municipalities that have dealt with
I can't hear
NSTAR.
you, Charlie, I'm sorry.
I said, except for Needham,
Yes,
the experience of all the other municipalities that I've heard about, including all the way down the Cape, has been just the same as ours.
I
That they've
understand
gotten
that.
nowhere with them. Now, I know people in Needham, and I've talked to people in Needham.
yes.
And we're not sure exactly how long they are going to continue to benefit from that letter. It may have been that they just decided to go somewhere else for a while and then come back later.
Okay.
But everywhere else and all the other information we had was that there wasn't very much you could do about this. You know, if I had known about Needham 3 months ago or whenever this started, I would have sent the letter.
We spoke, my wife and I spoke to you about this a month ago.
Not about Needham.
Yes, we did.
No.
Yes, we did, Charlie.
No, I'm sorry. The first thing I heard about Needham was last
Okay,
week.
next, let me finish. Have any of you driven up Cottonwood Circle to see what they've done?
Yes.
Yes,
How's it look to you?
Cottonwood looks like it's been clear cut.
How'd you like to walk out your front door and see that every morning?
Certainly would not.
It's horrible. How much value have I lost in that home? A lot. Probably 25%, at least, if not more. Thank you.
I know that I've already been before you, but last week, when I came before you, we asked about a special meeting for the town residents. And how it went was Mr. Costello says, they want that sooner, Charlie, Steve, than later. And you had scheduled something for the 19th. Well, I've been emailing Mr. Costello.
I haven't
I'm
received
telling
a
you-
single email from you,
And I've
Mr.
sent every one of them to Mr. McKinnon and copied. So he has them all, and I've been trying to just talk. And yes, I'm angry too. They cut 60 of my trees too, because they're not paying, they just go in, and the way they did it on Rocky Meadow, I'm gonna say this one more time. They do not have a survey, and they know what's up. Outback did nine houses on that particular place, and all of their things are wrong. I'm in land court over this. They went and cut after I told you that the problem was here. I'm not mad at the selectmen, I'm mad at the situation. But I have a copy that I will share with you of what they did in Needham. And this, when it was known, she's right, because we pay our taxes, and if we don't pay our taxes right away, you come at us. I own 2 homes in Middleborough. I am infuriated. I know about the 300-foot easement. But the 300-foot easement doesn't mean they can cut 300 feet into something that's surveyed. And this is where they're wrong, and I found this out in the court system in Boston today. Now, there are other things, and we need to step up for our community, because what they did was they went from the Rocky Meadow to Cottonwood, Amanda Street, the wealthy parts of this neighborhood. I am really upset with the system, because even when Thursday night, our board rep said, well, that's because that's a more affluent community. Malarkey. My town of Middleborough, I've been here a long time, and I want everything to be right for Middleborough. I've done things. I'm in the Middleborough Christmas parade. I'm in parades with Middleborough all the time. Kids come down my driveway to pat horses. They get them. Cape Cod just went up against them with the spraying. Okay? They spray our power lines with children, dogs, this has gone far enough. And this clear-cut things where they can just put a blue thing on and people come out of their houses crying. A 70-year-old woman had to turn around and put herself in a wheelchair and tie herself to a tree today. They're all calling me for help. I can't help them. I'm fighting to help myself, but I'll tell you right now, the selectmen of Needham in the affluent community and board reps and Mark Pacheco all signed this letter. Come see what they're doing. Go look through her window of her house and see the power lines through it and the next door neighbor and what it's going to do to my farm. I've spent a lot of money building that farm, but I'm going to go in for an abatement in this town because they're going to get me in the end. Because if there is a mistake, it's going to be a mistake. I might tie them up. But this is not right. This is because the state of Massachusetts put a mandate out that if it ever happens again, like it happened last year, they're going to be fined for their hours. This is what happened. And NSTAR, Steve Cartwright, stood in front of me and said, we'll show them. And this is what he said to me. We're going to show them. And they're showing them through us. But I'm infuriated. I'm going to keep this fight going. I don't want to fight with you, Mr. Costello, but I've been emailing and I've been copying Steve, and I just want you to talk to me. And yes, I sent an angry letter. I'm very, very angry about this. I have a right as a taxpayer, and I have another home in Plymouth. So I have 3 houses here in this community. I feel like no one's listening. When I have a lady say that they threatened to put cuffs on me today, that was your wife. It was you with shackles. Okay? I mean, he's threatening them. He told them he was going to have them arrested. Then when they were driving down the driveway, they said to him, you can't leave this property. And he says, yes, I'm leaving. And then he says, well, I'm going to call the police. What did she say? Go ahead. She says, go ahead, call them. People are ready to be arrested over what's happening to their land. There is such a rule on the books where they don't have to be this aggressive, and they can take and leave a little bit of a line. They're doing it in Needham. Please, I'm going to ask you before they cut the rest of Middleborough, and then they can say, well, geez, they buckled like Duxbury. It's not that the people are buckling, it's the system. And I'm frustrated with it, and all you guys are doing a good job. But we should have known. And if somebody comes into our town and they're going to do work, he mentioned they got to start making some changes. I'm going to be at every one of these meetings until these changes are made, because this is a travesty that I have to keep coming to meetings. I've got a job to do. I want to pay my taxes. I've done everything right. As-built, I've been approved through the towns, and they're telling me, well, geez, go back and sue the town. This is what they're telling me. I want to sue my town because they've approved things. I don't want to sue my town. What I want is you to back us with some backbone right now and understand that, leave a buffer. Come on, talk with these people. I'm not seeing anybody talk. It's crush, kill, destroy. My letter, I have it right in my file, says, we will talk to you after we cut your trees. That's the mitigation that I'm going to get after I cut my trees. I have all of it, every piece of it, pictures. I'm not going to stop with this because I'm going after this federal. And I'm not just blowing smoke here. I am upset and clear cutting, whether it's 300 feet or not. They paid $1,800 for that easement. Well, you know what? Things have gone up since then. So maybe since we don't use this, we should be able to get a little bit of money. How do you people feel about them taking those trees? We have on our easement, it says we have the right to cultivate the property. So we cultivate it. Cultivate means we can grow trees. Then they cut them out, they haul them off and sell them. You tell me how I should feel proud to be an American or a person in this town. Because I'm telling you right now, I'm not against you, but I feel like everyone's against us. And I'm sorry to be here a second time in front of you. I am requesting another meeting with, and I'll fill this room with the people so you can hear other stories of what needs to happen. We only have 3 people here. And thank God for Bill who comes, who's already been cut. But they went to the affluent communities because we were raising money for an injunction. But when I watched what they did on Rocky Meadow, when I showed them there was a problem, they cut the houses, left all the wood in between, and now they're clearing the wood. I don't like dealing with deceitful people. N-Star is corrupt. And I hope that they want to come after me for it. They're corrupt because they didn't warn us properly. They just took the easement as this is the way it is from the center of the pole to the other center, and I'm going to show them that that's wrong. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else under unanticipated? Okay, announcements.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Brian Giovannoni. I'm a member of the school committee, and I just want to let everyone know at home and yourselves that this Thursday night we do have a school committee meeting at the Nichols Middle School. It starts at 6:30. As always, the public is welcome, and it is broadcast live on Comcast and Verizon. I think it's channel 95 on Comcast and 35 on Verizon. And coming up on this week's agenda, we're going to be discussing the ratification, hopefully, of the 5th out of 6 contracts for the cafeteria workers. We're going to have an update from the high school and middle school on their school improvement plans. We're going to be celebrating our John and Abigail Adams Scholars, which are students who have passed with proficiency in advanced on MCAS at grades 10 in the high school. And we'll also be discussing some changes, potential changes to the wellness policy, which would maybe eliminate foods in the classroom, party-type foods in the classroom, that type of thing. But I wanted to welcome everyone to come down on Thursday night, this Thursday, November 21st, at the Nichols Middle School, 6:30 p.m., or watch us live on TV. And just as a word as to why I'm here, as part of the school committee, we've been doing workshops on making ourselves better. One of the items was to make sure we get out to the people, and one of the items that I'm tasked with is visiting you on Monday nights when we have a meeting and letting you know. So come on down if you...
We don't get a vote on that, huh? No?
I think Charlie does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a announcement from the COA, Andrea Priest. Letters being sent to all who purchased a brick for the COA Brick Memorial Walkway. We're pleased to announce that the walkway has been completed and it is beautiful. We give our thanks to the John Rosich, owner of Well Done Landscapes, for his generous contribution of time, labor, and skill. He offered the services of his company to support the work of the COA and its volunteers, and to honor those who are remembered in the memorial bricks. We invite you to the COA for a special recognition dedication on Friday, November 22nd, 10 a.m. Because of the autumn weather, we may not cooperate. We will hold a reception inside. We invite you to tour the brick walkway before or after the reception. There will be coffee, refreshments, and a short dedication and a chance to visit with your neighbors. Although the darker, colder days are with us, we can be confident that all the bulbs and the volunteers are planted will sprout in the warm spring, and that the roses will also bloom after a long winter's nap. Many times we see deer over the gardens, and we should get out there and take care of that problem.
Nuisance whitetails.
And they nibble at the greenery, and they're a beautiful sight. The walkway is a meaningful way to carry on the legacy of those we love and those who have loved the COA, and we hope you will join us. Does the board, any board members have any announcements?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
First of all, I'd like to announce the overnight parking ban is in effect in Middleborough from November 1st to May 1st. There's no parking on the streets from 12 a.m. morning, to 6 a.m. So in case they have to plow, we have to stay off the streets. Middleborough on the Move has a Middleborough holiday gift shop downtown at 50 Center Street. They have tables available for local vendors. It's open on the weekends, Saturday from 9 to 5 and Sunday from 9:30 to 2. And if you're interested in renting a space, I believe it's $35 for the both days. You can contact them at Holiday Gift Shop, that's SHOPPE, @gmail.com. And a little bit of good news, the Department of Revenue announced that it is going to match 52.23% of the first round of CPA money. That's a big, big increase from last year of 26. It's double, 26% last year, so that's some good news for the town. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Quell? I'm good. Mr. Knowlton?
I'd just like to remind everyone, Small Business Saturday is going to be November 30, so please join us downtown.
No? I'm good. Okay. Any other announcements? Okay. We're going to discuss the minutes for October 28th.
Motion to approve?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. I would like to discuss the regular meeting minutes for November 4th, 2013.
Motion to approve?
Second.
A motion and a second. Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Entertain a motion to authorize the chairman or his designee to sign the warrants for the week ending 11/15/2013.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The accountants are happy. New business. First item on the agenda is from Eckerts Simmons. And this is relative to the designation as a surrounding community. Mr. Costello?
Chairman, this is a letter we received from the Raynham Park people who are seeking to develop the slot parlor in Raynham. And they, I guess, read the Serpent report on the impacts of their facility and recognized that we would, in fact, be a surrounding community. Up until that point, they did not. And so I think this is good news. It gives us a better negotiating posture with them. And part of the process, though, is that we assent to being designated as a surrounding community by them for that purpose. And that's what I ask you to do tonight.
So I have to sign a letter? We need
Yeah,
a
well,
vote?
I'll put together a letter and, basically saying that we accept that designation.
So we entertain a motion to authorize the chairman to sign a letter indicating that we agree with the designation as a surrounding community?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I would
Yes.
just like to thank Charlie. I know you were very tenacious about this, and it didn't look like it was going to happen in the beginning, but thank you for keeping at it.
That's it? He's not going to give you a raise. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Could double my salary.
No? Sorry. Next item on the agenda, schedule a site assignment hearing for the Middleborough landfill for Wednesday, 11/18?
12/18.
12/18?
12/18.
11/18.
Yeah. Today's 11/18, all right. As you know, the expansion of the landfill that we agreed with Waste Management about a year ago requires a formal site assignment hearing for a major modification to the landfill. So this and the next two votes relate to having that hearing and going through that process. And it's a very formal process. We have to hire a hearing officer, take testimony, hire a consultant, and evaluate the the impacts.
So we don't necessarily run this hearing? The
You,
hearing?
well, you do, but, there's a hearing officer that, that actually conducts it for you as the Board of Health, basically. So, so this, Ms. Spalding and I have been, looking at firms. Mackey Shea O'Brien does this all the time. They come highly recommended. Ty and Bond, has advised a number of communities as a technical consultant on these types of hearings.
Do we have to pick one of these tonight?
Well, no. Mackey, Shea, and O'Brien will act as the hearing officer. Ty and Bond will act as the engineering consultant. But I just want to make sure that it's okay with you on your calendars for the 18th of December, or Wednesday.
We would only need 3 members to be here for that. We don't need a supermajority or anything.
No.
Anybody have a conflict with the 18th?
I do. I won't be here. Sorry.
Okay. Charlie remembers that at race time. And you're in a problem, 12, 18? John, you all set?
What time would that hearing be?
We haven't said it yet. We can make it later if it helps.
Later definitely helps.
How late?
7?
Yeah, 7,
okay,
yeah,
good.
for sure, yeah.
Our meetings are normally at 7.
That's
When
right,
you
I
said
just-
later, I thought you meant 8.
I didn't want it to happen earlier.
Not a Patriots game that night or anything, is it?
Usually, I don't know of any Wednesday night football, but you never know with the NFL.
This is Middleborough, any number of things can happen. Okay. All right, so we'll schedule, entertain a motion to...
Did you want to ask me if I had a
Oh,
conflict?
just Mr. Vice Chairman.
I'm good.
Do you have a conflict? Are you hunting that night or anything?
I wish.
We do too. Entertain a motion to schedule a site assignment hearing,
So moved.
Second.
12/18/2013, 7 p.m., Selectmen's Meeting Room.
Right here.
Do we have to post that in the newspaper?
Yeah, actually, there's a requirement that we advertise it for 21 days in advance, so that's why we are having to decide now to do that, to make sure we meet that requirement.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. Next item on the agenda is to discuss the Mackey, Shea, and O'Brien, Counselor-at-Law, to be the hearing officers for this particular hearing, representing the Middleborough Board of Health.
Correct.
There's a fee involved.
There is. He's given us an estimate of $10,000 to conduct the hearing. This is, of course, paid for by the applicant, not by the town.
For
So-
one night?
Well, it's not just one night, it's,
I still got
Right,
to
it-
get that job.
it could extend more than one night, where it's not, you just don't know. So this is a typical budget for this kind of hearing.
$10,000. And that's paid for by the applicant?
Paid for by the applicant.
Okay.
The rate, Mr. Chairman, is $440 per hour, just so you know.
Business. All right. Any comments or questions, discussions? Damn.
I've never even lost one.
Okay, I would entertain a motion relative to this.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Next item on the agenda is to discuss having Ty and Bond as our technical consultants relative to the Middleborough sanitary landfill. And their fee is also,
Their fee is $7,500,
and that's picked up by...
and picked up by the applicant.
We got more if you went to
engineering
law
school.
school. Not much more, but more. Okay, any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. You did vote. You did take the motions, okay. I get a little ahead of myself sometimes. Next item. This one I have concerns with. vote to discuss or to sign the Center for Internet Security Multi-State ISAC member agreement. I believe IT is bringing this forward. Would you like
They
to...
are here tonight.
Would you like to discuss this magical little program?
I'm Ellen Driscoll. I'm the Technology System Administrator for the town and for the school department. We're asking that we're interested in becoming a member of the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center, I refer to as MS-ISAC in the future. In order to do so, the town must enroll in the MS-ISAC membership agreement, which I have before you. Town Council Mr. Dan Murray has reviewed this, and this organization works collaboratively with the Office of Cybersecurity and Communications within the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. MS-ISAC was designed by the Department of Homeland Security as a key resource for cyber threat prevention, protection, response, and recovery for state and local governments. All 50 states are members, as well as the city of Boston. There is no charge to become a member of this organization, and we will benefit from the MS-ISAC's 24/7 Security Operations Center, incident response resources, cyber security advisories, and cyber event notifications, to name a few. I consider this something that would be very beneficial to the town in the way that they will monitor what is happening on our network. Just on November 6th, the Swansea Police Department was held ransom for $750 by a computer virus called CryptoLocker, which encrypts the files by changing file extensions. They actually had to pay for this using an online currency called Bitcoins. There are other school districts. I know Tara, our network administrator, she has gone to a presentation on this, and they have, when they had a school district that actually was hacked into and money was transferred. So they actually have cyber theft rings that use malware. One example is Zeus, which is a Trojan, that launch attacks from compromised machines and allows criminals to transfer the stolen funds. They use money mules. People actually go in and to ATMs, transfer the money, and then they take the money out and they take it overseas, wherever their contacts are. And they receive a percentage of the funds. And this actually happened to a school district. And this organization helped them receive a portion of the money. They didn't get it all back. So basically, we're just looking at somebody to give us an added layer of protection for our network that doesn't cost us anything. And they actually work with the FBI and all of the Homeland Security and all the different agencies, the large ISP organizations as well, I mean companies. So if there's any questions or concerns.
Well, I have questions.
Yeah.
They're going to be into our system all the time.
They would be monitoring.
Scanning
us.
our system all the
Right,
time.
yeah.
Are they going to be taking any data out of our system?
They would notify us. They give you alerts. And you can actually go to their website. They actually have a blog where they talked about this crypto locker. So when anything new comes out, you're notified right away. So if they saw something like that, they would notify us. That we, and in turn, would have to determine what steps we're going to take to alleviate whatever the issue is.
I'm just concerned about the information security
Well, there's a firewall.
from them. Not so much, I don't know, maybe I'm just being paranoid in my
no, I
old age,
understand where
but
you're
I don't
coming
like the
from.
idea of the government
Right.
sitting there sticking their nose into our computer system and, ferreting out information on the various taxpayers.
Yeah, they're looking for the people, just like what I said happened to the Swansea Police Department. They're trying to protect you. They're working with all these agencies.
I know.
I would have the same concern when it comes to actually giving information out or giving them anything. That would be a determination amongst the town, decide what they're going to get in terms of following through. They're just notifying us that there's something there that's happening. And so it's a notification system.
Just have that problem with
I understand, because Big Brother is
Big
everywhere.
Brother's a little too close to my wallet
Can I tell
already.
you, there isn't a secret that you have if you're on, whether it's your home, ISP, whatever provider you have, they know exactly where you are at any given time and what you're doing. if you're on a network, there are no secrets, and people need to understand that.
That's
There's
great.
no secrets already.
Glad to hear that. That's super.
I
Board
try to
members?
teach that to all my teachers.
Board
Mr.
members?
Chair.
Yes.
Just a question. Part of this, I was reading through, is that we have to share information with them as well.
Right.
Is that going to take part of someone's
Time.
job hours and time?
It's only if they find something. It's not, this is a, like I said, a monitoring notification system. It's not a sharing process that it's a give and take, or, it's, they're telling us there's a problem, we look into it. And I actually have the same thing on the school side, where we have a company that monitors ours, and lets us know if there's something going on, and I'll get an email saying, this is, from this IP address, this looks like suspicious activity. And then we go in ourselves and take a look and see if it is or it isn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So you were working with a system similar to this in the schools. Have you worked with this particular system through the government before?
I have not.
Okay.
We're actually paying for the system that I have in the school, but it's E-ratable, where the town is not able to get an E-ratable type system. So there's no discounts. So this is a free solution.
Free always comes at a cost.
I know.
Mr. Quell?
So if I understand right, this is a system that alerts you when something is trying to hack your system, but it doesn't necessarily prevent the hack from happening.
It doesn't prevent it. We have firewalls in place that are supposed to do that, and in the article about the Swansea Police Department, that's one of the things that they concluded with, is there's no foolproof system.
Well, no, I
Yeah.
wasn't looking for one, but this
Yeah.
is just a
I wish we
system that would
could.
help us to
Yeah.
just trace the breadcrumbs back to where it happened. I mean, what exactly is our
Yeah.
benefit here? I'm
Yeah,
not,
usually they identify the IP address where something's coming from, and then they search it from there.
so it wonon't be it won't be a prevention tool as much as it will be maybe
It's a monitoring.
monitoring device, lets us know when it's happening, and then if it does happen, maybe helps us catch the people.
Yeah, well, like that Zeus that I talked about, that's one of these, where it's a Trojan horse, you don't even know it's there, and it doesn't even activate itself. It could activate itself, a week after it's actually been downloaded on your machine. So it's very difficult sometimes to catch some of these things, at least on the our user level.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? You don't mind if Big Brother watches, huh? Pleasure of the
Do you
board?
think he's not watching already?
I like to live
I've
in
seen
my
your
little
Facebook
bubble.
posts, you're on lists.
I should be on lists. I should be on post office walls. Pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That would be me. The ayes have it.
I certainly understand. Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is to authorize the chairman to sign a CIC grant for the school department.
Well, actually, the school department elected not to pursue the grant in that way. They're going to pursue a different grant that doesn't require our participation. They're going to do it with a number of other school districts, so there's no municipal ties.
Something I
this year.
said, or what?
Scared him off.
Let's narrow it down a little.
Nope. Okay, in that case, we'll go on to the next item on the agenda, which is Bartender Services of New England. This will be a beer and wine license for William Fuller for the Alley Theater, November 19th, 6:30 to 11 p.m. And this is a documentary screening, for a documentary screening. Pleasure.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second. All those in, any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Next item on the agenda, vote to, a request by Barbara Holton to remove materials set in front of 68 Purchase Street. Now, these materials are two
Steel
signposts?
posts and some concrete barriers.
And they are not, they're on town property?
They are on town property.
And there's enough width that there's no problems with access to the property, to the
No.
person's property? Okay. Yes? Ms. Holden, how are you?
Well,
On November 12th, I received a response from the town manager about the removal of the barriers at 68 Purchase Street. And this is what I was told: nothing would be done at this time. They remain on our property, and they're not inclined to move them at this time. They have, I don't know what the purpose of them is. And I don't know of any other resident on my street or any other street in town that have barriers and posts in front of their residence on town property. The snow will be coming soon. If we have any snow like we had last year, it could be a hazard to the town as well as us. I mean, if they get covered and the plow comes down the street and hits one, there'll be plenty of damage done to the town plow. The fact that we can't plow our own driveway will,
Why can't you plow your own driveway?
because where are we going to push the snow? Into the barriers?
Where would you push it normally?
That's where we push the snow, where the
You
barriers
have
are.
to push it before the barrier then.
There is no room before the barrier. They're practically out. What are the barriers there for?
Okay. So, pleasure of the board on this?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions.
Good.
What's the point of the barriers still being there?
Well, the barriers are there because they took a lot of work to put in, and I wouldn't have to want to go back and put them back if this situation materializes again. Let's remind ourselves about why they're there. Ms. Holton didn't comply with the court directive, and we were forced to do this at considerable expense. I don't mind, I'd love to take them out, but I want to be sure that I take them out once and for all, and I'm not sure of that yet.
Yeah. The reason they were put there is because there was a campground there. There is no campground. The campground is closed. It's been closed for over a year, and that's why they're there. The order said that by means practical to block off the entrance of the campground, by means practical.
Well, that's what we had to do.
Oh, that's what you
we
thought you had to do.
No, that's what we had to do.
And you know, if somebody,
Mrs. Holden, we're not going to discuss the campground issue that's gone on forever.
well, we're discussing the barriers. The campground's
fine.
gone. There is no campground.
We don't know that.
You don't know that?
No?
It's
You-
on the assessors.
Fine. Board members, I would recommend we table this, take it under advisement. We can always review this at a later date. Any comments or questions? I would entertain a motion as such.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Unbelievable. Harass us some more.
Next item on the agenda. There's a 30th annual Cape Cod Gateway MS bike ride on June 28th and 29th, 2014. This is a two-day, 150-mile bike tour that attracts 2,100 cyclists, and they wish to go through our town. They've done this, I don't know how many years now. This has been on there, I think, ever since I've been on the board, 5 years. So, police, fire are all on board with this?
Jackie, do you have responses?
Yes, I had left you a note. The police chief responded today. I couldn't get this out to them till the end of the week. And if you could just vote subject to no issues with the fire chief. He hasn't had an opportunity to respond, but the police chief has no issues. Or if they have particular requirements, I'll make sure I put that in the approval.
And we want to make sure that we have the trash collection. We don't want to have
Standard.
to do our refuse pickup.
Mr. Chair,
Comments? Yes?
can we make our permits start to reflect the trash pickup so we don't have to address it each time?
Yeah. I don't have to
Do
do
we-
it at home.
Do we have to modify them in some sense, or?
I usually include it in the letter.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
To Fire Chief's knowledge.
Subject contingent upon fire chief and police chief's approval and the trash thing in it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Next item on the agenda is we're going to vote for a contract with Pavo Construction for the infrastructure repair of Park and Sprout Streets, and authorize the chairman to sign the particular letter. Hi.
Hi, Jane Cudsey, Middleborough Office of Economic and Community Development.
Jane.
I'm just here if you have any questions. This is that part of that CDBG block grant, the FY 2013 with the town of Fairhaven.
Is that going to be done, are they going to be paving now, or are they going to wait till the spring, or?
No, this is a joint project with the town of Fairhaven, so Fairhaven is going to be starting some work shortly on their piece of the infrastructure project. Our work will probably begin in the spring. As of right now, the DPW has laid the water main, and that, I believe, is being completed this week. So we've worked with the DPW so that we can make sure that this proceeds smoothly and that we don't have any roads torn up afterwards, so.
So all of the necessary utilities have been taken care of, gas company's been through?
I
and-
believe so.
Will you check?
I will.
Just to make sure?
I will.
Because I don't want to.
I hear you.
Pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I have a quick question. I noticed in the contract that it says if we have any disputes, that they would be settled in Bristol County Court. Is that because this is a joint grant with Fairhaven?
That's correct, and Fairhaven is actually the town that's taken the lead on this grant.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Next item on the agenda is to approve to vote the town retirees to participate in the health insurance buyout program. Charlie, you want to address this issue?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is something we started this year with our active employees, where we offered them a stipend, basically, to opt out of our health plan. We're offering $1,000 for a individual plan, $2,500 for a family plan. It's a win-win. If the employee has access to health care in another location, they can take home some extra cash, and we could save some dollars on our health expenses. So this is basically the same form that we've offered to many of our active employees. I was approached by the representatives of the Retirees Association recently, and I said I would bring this up to the board as well. And because we don't bargain with our retirees, we have to do this in the form of a policy. And that's how we did the policy recently, or I think about a year or so ago, that allows our retirees to come back on the health plan at any time if, again, they find an avenue to get health insurance through a spouse. It just gives them the assurance that if they ever needed to come back to our plan, they could. And this is another policy relating to our retirees.
Okay. Questions of the board?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So the town's retiree group is fully on board with this?
Yes, they requested it.
All right.
Any other questions? Comments? Entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Okay. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Next item on the agenda is a cease and desist to vote to send a letter to Paula Carey to cease and desist the unlicensed business referred to as Middleborough Taxi located at 217 Center Street. Who wishes to address this?
Just briefly, and certainly Jackie is more versed in it than I am, but We became aware recently that we had a taxi operating without a license in town. Jackie's been in touch with them on more than one occasion to ask them to come in and get a license. A license is not expensive, but it does provide certain protections to the public by having the vehicles inspected and making sure the drivers are appropriate. And this organization has not done so despite having operated for quite some time on Center Street. So we recently received another complaint, which prompted us to again to address this to them, didn't get a satisfactory response from them, and therefore are asking you to take some additional action to have them come into compliance with our rules.
So what happens after the cease and desist?
Probably end up going to court. I mean, we don't really have a mechanism of enforcement within the rules that would cover this, correct?
Right. Well, hopefully they would cease and desist, and that would be the end of it, unless they come in and apply for a license. And that would be it. If they don't, then it would be a court action matter. They have come in after all of this was prepared, after a day was spent on this last week, and took out an application. It has not been returned. But this is the second application that was taken. And it wasn't taken by Ms. Carey, it was taken by a gentleman who informed me he was going to run the business. But he was in the office a year ago with her and given an application and the regulations.
Okay.
So.
Anybody from either Ms. Carey or anybody from the taxi company available to speak to this?
She's over there.
Do you have anything you wish to say about this?
If that is Ms. Carey, then she was not in the office a year ago. Another woman was with the gentleman who was in the other day. So I apologize, but there was a woman in, and so it was my understanding it was the two of them running the business. I believe the man who came in the other day was the same man who came in a year ago. He did say to me the other day he needed another application, so.
Okay. What would you like me to address?
Are you applying for a license? Have you applied for a license?
We have filled out all the paperwork. We got as far as the town assessor's office and found out that the property that we are renting has not paid their taxes. And that's as far as we have
Mr. Chair?
gotten.
Are you Paula Carey?
Yeah.
All right, let's get that stuff cleared up first. I wasn't sure.
Sorry.
All right, okay. Good.
All right, so
This was Superior Taxi. We had a bankruptcy, Superior had a bankruptcy. This is how this all started. So it's not like I'm operating Middleborough Taxi. My attorney chose to try to separate from Superior. We're supposed to be buying Superior Taxi, but they haven't gone through their bankruptcy, and we didn't want to pick up their bankruptcy. Because it's a lot more involved than just we're running Middleborough Taxi. The phone's still under Superior.
Mr. Chair, I think I provided the board with some information from town council. We have
The letter I got was
word
to
from Mr.
Superior
DeLong.
Taxi, not to me, the letter that
one
I
at a-
received.
I can only do one at a time because I'm old and feeble.
Word from Mr. DeLongchamp as of the other day is he is completely out of business and has nothing to do with Middleborough Taxi at all. And as far as the assessors and the application ever stopping it from being submitted to our office, it's been over a year.
No, a year
there's
ago,
never-
Mr. DeLongchamp's, I still deposit the money into Mr. DeLongchamp's checking account, Superior Taxi account.
Well, this information is coming from the police chief and town council to me, so that's all I can share with you.
I mean, we can fill out the application tomorrow. We had words the other day because I said my back's up against the wall, I don't really know what to do. Mr. DeLongchamp told me a month ago that once it goes through the bankruptcy and the court attaches a value to it, then I am obligated to pay that value. Or that he could still be owning Superior Taxi. So it has been just a cluster. And I said to you the other day that just pick up the phone and give people a ride, or I don't. I understand what the town is saying, but we've paid the insurances, we've done everything. It's just this right here that we have an issue with.
Okay, well, we need to have a permit.
Need to have
So we need to go.
They need to have a license for the business. They also need to have licenses for their drivers with Cory checks, and those licenses are issued by the police chief.
Right, we've all filled out, and the police chief is in possession of those. I have an LLC for Middleborough Taxi.
The police chief
Yeah.
advised me the other day that someone came in and took out applications for those licenses for the drivers, and he advised them he will not issue those licenses until the board issues his company a license.
Okay.
And again, I haven't received an application. I didn't receive positive feedback the other day in our conversation, which she has just alluded to. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Recommendations here?
Well, I guess I'd like to know from the applicant, are you going to file an application?
We've got all the paperwork to file an
Right.
application, although after I had words with Jackie on Thursday, she told me we had till Friday to get here. And then somebody came into my office Thursday saying that she was already taking out a complaint, so I just let everything lay where it lays and see what I have to do.
Well, I guess I would suggest that we get an application so we don't have to pursue
So
this
I have an
further.
application and I have to have a hearing for the selectmen, is that?
Correct. I think you
Okay.
need, I think what we were asking the applicant to do is start the application process and get a license. And if they had done that before, we wouldn't be here tonight.
You get this done before next week?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd make a motion that we table this till next week.
Second.
You got a week.
So I come back
You-
next week, or
No,
I
you-
get all this over to Jackie?
Come into Jackie, you go through the process with Jackie to get the paperwork all squared away,
Mhm.
and we'll have it on the agenda.
Okay,
And if it's right, she'll tell you it's okay, and if it's
Okay.
wrong, Jackie's very good about that, she'll also tell you what's wrong and what has to be fixed.
okay.
So you got a week. Don't wait till next Friday. Start Monday, start today, start right
It's all
now.
done, I brought it with me,
Okay?
so,
All right. So, we
Monday?
have a motion to postpone this action till next Monday. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You guys have it. Okay.
Mr. Chair, since we're still on this,
Yes?
if we don't have the teeth to enforce any of this, as the way it stands now, how about we look into putting something in here so that the next time this comes up, we can say, we don't have to go to court and then hope that somebody else takes care of it. Why don't we add something, somehow amend our own bylaw or policy that we can shut the place down if they're operating without a license here, rather than give it 6 months to go through whatever court system it may have to go through.
Mr. Chair, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
In our bylaw, it does say if they do not present their license and their insurance, that we have the right to suspend a license and not allow them one for a year.
Well,
But
they haven't been
suspending a
operating for a
license
year.
that nobody has doesn't do anything. That's where we run into these, and I'm not saying this is anybody's fault, but what we have here is an opportunity to fix it, so we don't have to deal with this again next time. And I think we should ask Jackie's opinion on how we could do that.
Well, I just wanted to add that I believe town council told me the other day there was something in the previous regulations, and when they were updated or changed at some point in time, it was taken out for whatever reason. So I think it's possible you can do that.
We will do that. We'll look into it. I'll talk to Dan, and we'll figure out what that was and
Did you get that to
put
us
something back in.
next week, so we can take care of two birds with one stone, so to speak?
All right, I'll see if I can, we can pull it out.
Good.
Here to help, any way we can.
That's right.
All right, hearings, meetings, and licenses. 7:30. It is 7:30. First item on the agenda is vote to sign the rent board decision and to close the hearing. So we have to actually close the hearing and then sign the rent board decision. So, relative to the Hillcrest Mobile Home Tenants Association, Inc., and the Hillcrest MHP LLC, NKA Morgan MHP Mass LLC and the Town of Middleborough's Rent Board decision. We have the decision was to allow for increase in the rents for the next 3 years, go up to $281 the month following the approval. And then 12 months after that, it'll go up to $298. And 12 months after that, it will go up to $310. In each case, there will be a $12 a month fee per unit, licensing fee. And this was the agreement that the group needed to pursue purchasing the park. This agreement only applies to the Mobile Home Association itself. It does not apply to the current owner-operators of the mobile home park. So I will close the hearing, and now I'll entertain a motion to sign the rent board decision.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Tax classification public hearing.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you? Diane Madigan, I'm on the Board of Assessors, and we have been studying this, and we just had a meeting before this, and at our meeting tonight, we looked at the booklet that you have. Hopefully the information there is good for you, and after review of that, talking with taxpayers, looking at things that have happened throughout the past year, we are suggesting that we keep the tax rate at the split of 5%.
And that's been at that for
About 7 years.
7 years.
Excuse me, Steve?
Yes, ma'am.
You need to read the hearing notice.
Oh, I do. Thank you. Excuse me. You'll have to start again in just a moment when I finish doing my job right, which is unusual. A hearing will be held in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, the Town Hall, 10 Nickerson Ave, Middleborough, Mass., on Monday, November 18, 2013, at 7:30, to discuss the allocation of the fiscal year 2014 tax levy among the various classes of property in the town of Middleborough. The hearing will give interested citizens an opportunity to comment on the local property tax policy as it will be applied during fiscal year 2014. I declare the meeting open, the hearing open. Hi, can I help you?
Put it on rewind.
Deja vu.
We had a meeting just before this, and at the meeting, we reviewed the information that you have, talked about what has happened throughout the past year, talked about sales, what taxpayers have said to us, and as a result, we've decided our recommendation would be to keep the tax split at 5%.
Okay. Tax split maintains 5%. Can you explain what that really means to the folks back home?
I bet Barbara could do it much better than I could. I could, but...
Barbara, would you explain what that 5% tax split really means to the folks back home?
What it means is that the commercial, industrial, and personal property taxpayers would pay 5%. Their tax rate would be 5% higher than the residential tax rate.
Okay. That's good. And it has been 5% higher for the past 7 years.
That is correct.
And it was much higher than that before the 7 years, wasn't it?
That is correct. It has been up to 40% higher back in the 80s.
Okay. I know my board members must have a lot of questions, so.
Actually, I do have a question. What is the, why the jump in personal property percentage?
I have that too.
Are you referring to new growth, Alec?
What's that?
Are you referring to the new growth calculation?
The fiscal 2014 classification, the chart, the upper chart on page 5.
Yeah.
Personal property percentage. Residential is 45%, commercial is 7%, industrial is 1%. Personal property is 47%.
Right, it's the new growth, it's the percentage of new growth represented by those classifications.
Yeah. Actually, there's two reasons for that. Well, first of all, this is a revaluation year, so that means that the company that we hired to do the personal property goes out to every single business in town, as opposed to the interim year adjustments where they go out to just new businesses. The reason that the new growth is so much higher this year, besides the fact that they went out to every business, is that we had two businesses. One was a utility company that had about $5 million in new growth, and we also had Pavestone in South Middleborough that replaced all of their equipment to a tune of about $6 million.
Didn't Ocean Spray just upgrade to their sweet and dried cranberries too, to the tune of a couple $1 million?
And Ocean Spray is under a TIF agreement. They don't pay personal property taxes, plus they're also a manufacturing corporation, so they wouldn't pay personal property anyway.
All right. Now, the year when you go out and inspect all these things, was that 2004, 2009 as well? Because there seem to be significant jumps in personal property. I'm just wondering.
Fiscal 2010 was our last reval, and then prior to that would have been fiscal 2007.
All right.
Really, the big percentage jump is those two. I mean, that there was $18.2 million in new growth, and over $11 million of that was just those two businesses.
So personal property is really machinery?
Yes.
It's not, well,
it depends. If you're incorporated, it's just machinery that you pay on. If you are a manufacturing corporation, you do not pay to the town, you pay to the state. If you are a individual or an LLC, then you pay on everything. You pay on you pay on machinery, equipment, furniture, fixtures, inventory.
so we also had the Compass Medical in here, which, that must have impacted this.
We
because
would
they
have picked that up for last year.
That would have been last year?
Yes.
Time flies when you're having fun, Steve.
In a whole year. Wow.
But you did pick up Star Mill this year?
We
Some
did.
of it.
50%.
Some of it.
Yeah, for the commercial, yes. Well, actually for the residential, because it's residential. It's apartments.
How does our business rate or our commercial rate, tax rate, compare with surrounding communities?
Well, I have the list of everything in Massachusetts.
I know when we talk to companies about TIFs, we usually compare pretty favorably, certainly with our main competitor, Taunton, because they have industrial parks, we have industrial parks. For whatever reason, Wareham's tax rate is extremely low. I've always noticed that when we looked at other towns. But generally, we compare pretty favorably, I think.
Does Wareham have more industry than we do?
I've never looked into it. Maybe the assessors know more, but I've just always noticed that they have a very low tax rate.
We have the lowest energy rates around now, too.
Yeah, they have districts also, like water districts and that.
Well, that's correct. They have separate districts that provide fire service and other services that aren't part of the tax rate, that would be on our tax rate.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? Any comments or questions from the audience? Really? Okay. And I will close the hearing. Declare the hearing closed. Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve, keeping the tax rate the way it is.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Now, we have to have 3 people tomorrow.
That is correct. I will have everything in the computer either this evening or first thing in the morning for the classification hearing. So yes, we would need 3 selectmen that would come in and electronically sign through Gateway.
Okay, and you will have all the necessary passwords and
IT has those. I don't know if, yeah.
Jackie has them.
you have them?
I was going to say, I think that IT had given them to
In
Jeff.
past years, I think we've gone into your department and did that in your,
I think I've actually come over into the selectmen's room to do it, because I think it has to be done from your computer.
it has to be done from Jackie's? Or?
Yes.
Okay. So we need at least 3, this has to be done tomorrow, correct?
Yes, and that is actually our late night, so I am here until 8 o'clock tomorrow evening.
I can be there by 8.
Yeah, but Jackie
I can be
isn't,
there.
so.
I can be there during the day.
I can be in,
You can go, all right, I'll get in there, I'll try to get in there. You say you'll be ready, well, you'll have it ready by the afternoon.
I'll have it ready, yeah,
Okay,
first
I'll
thing in
get
the morning.
there by the afternoon. And you might want to pop in if you, John, I don't,
I can be here after 7, I think.
after 7?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we won't be able to get into Jackie's office.
Yeah, as long as we have the majority of the board.
If we have 3, we're okay.
Yep.
All right. Very
Okay,
good.
thank you.
Thank you. The next hearing, we have Christopher Anzioni, Vice President of Plymouth and Brockton Bus Company, discussing a possible vote to pursue building a stop in town for its new Plymouth to Providence bus route. Good evening, sir.
Hey, welcome.
Would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Christopher Anzoni, Vice President, Plymouth and Brockton Street Railway Company. I was talking with Selectman Delphi a couple of weeks ago over in Plymouth, and I think I followed the sirens call over to Middleborough. But we are proposing a route, we're working with Mass DOT between Plymouth and Providence. We haven't quite established all our stops yet. Ideally, we'd like to have one in Middleborough. It's pretty difficult to find an actual location. The difficulty we have is we try to create an express service, so you don't want to go too far off of the main road. So I think to come down to Middleborough Center would be a little too far off. We were looking at possibly some sites up Route 18 maybe, but we haven't actually located a site yet. But we will be at one point looking for permission at least to come across Route 44, and ideally we'll find a spot that we can have that. But we had a spot in mind, I think when we set the meeting, but that's not going to work out. But if I can find a spot, I'll be back.
Yeah.
And then-
I do have some other places to show you.
Okay,
I've been working.
I was riding around a lot
Right,
Saturday.
yeah,
too,
yeah.
sometimes.
Did you see the hotels on 44?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, that's right on your route. They're north of 44 as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, well, part of it, the Mass DO role is they have some, little bit of funding if we can find a spot in a rural, designated on the U.S. Census map where the rural location is, and there are some north of 44. Unfortunately, that's not it. They sort of went up for, that one's an urban spot, the one you're looking at too.
Well, the industrial parks also, they fit into there.
They do fit, the
Yeah, we're
industrial
working
parks
on
do fit
that.
into there.
Yep.
So it's just a matter of trying to find something where you can get the bus in and turn it around quickly and get it back out with too much traffic. So one of the difficulties is some of that traffic at the road, it's okay to hit it once, but you go out and you come back again, it makes it very difficult for the people that go on that whole route.
Yeah, we've heard about rotary issues. I think once, twice maybe? 3 times.
So I think, so clarification for me for the process, like would we send a letter that we're looking for the streets for the approval, or should I just show up here again?
Yeah, why don't you can send, you want to have them send a letter in?
Sure.
Indicating, okay, you can send it to Charlie Costello,
Yeah, I
town
have
manager.
Okay.
And then we'll work with you any way we can.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, report by Selectman Delphi on her testimony at the Joint Committee for Tourism on 11/8/2013 at the Plymouth Plantation. We vote to establish a tourism committee.
Thank you. As you said, on November 8th, 2014, a hearing was held by the Joint Committee of the State Senate and State Representatives on Tourism, and it was held in Plymouth Plantation. It's customary for them, this committee, to, given the nature of their business, to hold hearings throughout the state to hear firsthand from the different regions what their concerns and plans are concerning tourism. There were several speakers testifying from many local industries such as hotels, restaurants, transportation, and that's where I met Mr. Anzoni, colleges, marketing companies, and regional tourist office. In exploring ways for Middleborough, as everyone knows, tourism and business is my thing. I'm trying to get Middleborough to tap into the robust tourist industry that is throughout Plymouth County. We are part of Plymouth County, so I've been working with Paul Cripps, who's head of the Plymouth County Regional Tourism Division of MOT, which is Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism, and he asked me to actually testify as to how MOT and his office was helping us. He's helping us market actually by organizing and budgeting a marketing plan, connecting us with marketing mechanisms which are already in place, such as sleepplymouth.org. We have a lot of free advertising through their websites and their publications. He's introducing us to appropriate vendors to aid us in executing our plan, such as web designers, printers, and organizations who circulate travel information. And most importantly, he's directing us to sources which are available to the town for funding our marketing campaign. The Joint Committee was very excited to hear about our plans for Middleborough and getting us on the map, and they found the information about how the regional office was assisting us especially helpful in their decision to support and fund the regional and state offices. If they don't fund them, we don't get funding. Found out they were also opera fans, asked me to sing, and joked that they would pay for each note to the town. So I took them up on it, but I think I should have held out for more than just lunch that day. So that's about all I have. Part of the requirement to apply for funding and use all of MOTS and the Regional Tourism Office, all of their offices and their people and their facilities, is that we have to have a commission or a committee that's dedicated to marketing Middleborough. So that's where the putting a committee together comes in. And I see the way we do this is that we announce it tonight, am I right? And then we put it out there for anyone who's interested who would like to join it. I'm not sure the procedure, so Charlie knows that better than I.
Yeah, I would think if you're interested in doing this, that you just, seek volunteers from the community to see who might want to serve that maybe we haven't tapped into already, and draw them in.
Okay, so.
Any questions of Ms. Dalton?
Thank you for doing such a bang-up job on this. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm like a terrier. No comments.
Mr. Quell, anything?
No, so we don't really need a vote then, we just...
I think we have to form the committee.
We have to form a committee.
So you're looking for a motion, or do we not need a vote? Okay, I make a motion.
Make a motion for 5 people.
Okay.
Sound good to you?
Sure.
Second.
5 people, say 2 selectmen.
No committee needs to select.
Well,
Unless you don't want it to work.
if there's going to be selectmen, I would ask that I'm the one that's on it.
Oh, don't worry, you don't have to ask. Okay, so a committee of 5 people to be established. We can set the terms, or so there'll be a rotation.
Yeah, we'll do the typical 3-year terms.
3-year terms, okay. All right. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions?
I think we have some people in the audience that would like to say something. I know some people that are interested in it are here tonight as well.
Would they just receive their appointment by the moderator?
No, it'll come through the Board of Selectmen.
It'd have to come through us. Okay.
You're appointed.
We're appointed. Yes?
Judy Bigelow Costa, Wood Street. I would like to be the first one to apply for this commission, please. I have been working on tourism for a number of years under the direction first of our beloved Anna Nelabanco, and then furthering going on to these different meetings that I introduced Leilani to. And I have been following through on a number of different occasions for a number of different things. I recently joined Tourism Cares and helped to revitalize Plymouth Plantation. I go through a number of Sea Plymouth meetings. I am a member of it, and I have a great deal of knowledge of the things going on in the town. Okay. And I thank you for this.
Thank you.
As I can't be number one, I also would like to offer as
Who
number
might
2.
you be, sir? I don't recognize you.
I am Glenn Montepert. I am 30 years experience with project management in corporate offices from AT&T, IBM to Johnson & Johnson. I'd like to offer my project management skills, coordination to assist in this.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other?
I'm sorry, I have a question. Do they have to send in a letter officially as well, Charlie?
I think a letter or an email
Okay.
would be helpful.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions from the audience? No? So we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions from the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. You're in.
Awesome. Thank you.
Queen of Tourism. Very good.
Miss Tourism.
Next item on the agenda is a request by the Timothy Walsh Foundation for a letter of support for a proposed registered medical marijuana dispensary in Middleborough. And somewhere in here, I'm sure. Good evening.
Good evening, Steve.
And how are you tonight?
Very good. I'm Tim Shaw, president of the Timothy Walsh Foundation.
Evening. So, you are looking for a letter of support from this board, and how will that help you? What will that do for you?
That'll distinguish us from other groups going for the same permit that we are. It'll help to show that we've done our due diligence to show the town, our host town, that we want to work with the town, and I think that'll go a long way with the Department of Health.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Frawley?
Mr. Shaw, can you read the letter you sent us today?
I can, excuse me, Luke. All right. To the town of Middleborough, the Timothy Walsh Foundation is committed to supporting the town of Middleborough with the execution of adding 2 new officers to the current police force. The Timothy Walsh Foundation will contribute resources in the amount of $24,000 contingent upon the opening of the RMD in the town. These contributions will finance the cost of 2 officers to attend the police academy. The Timothy Walsh Foundation will contribute the same amount of resources in fiscal year 2 of doing business. Starting in the 3rd fiscal year and continuing while operating in the town of Middleborough, we pledge to pay the base salary of the lowest paid officer on the police force.
Thank you.
No worries.
Well, it should be noted naturally that the $24,000 doesn't pay for 2 police officers.
Okay.
Because if
to help.
police officers only cost $12,000 apiece, we'd have about 100 of them out there.
Right.
Or maybe 200. But what that does
To help
do.
in the cost of the
that
officers' need. right?
Gets them
we
into the
needed,
academy.
we needed to finish 2, we needed to have enough money to put 2 more officers to complete the 5 that we need to replace for losses that we're going to sustain this year through retirements. And you're stepping up to the plate
Absolutely.
to do that. And for that, get a letter of support. Discussion by the board members.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I will not be in favor of a letter of support for this. I've talked with many members of our community, and they feel that this is not a good match for our town. Yes, there was a vote in November of 2012.
Correct.
And that was a statewide vote. That wasn't for, do you want a dispensary in your town?
True.
That's all I have to say.
That's it? Okay. Mr. Quell, do you have anything?
Well, first of all, I want to say that throughout this whole journey, you've conducted yourself very professionally. You've been very upfront and honest. I know we've had a couple of discussions, and I know it hasn't been easy for you. And I warned you at the beginning, there's going to be a knee-jerk reaction to just the word marijuana.
Right.
We'll have as many liquor stores and bars as it takes, but then when somebody talks about marijuana, everybody just got going nuts. And I think that other levels of government have made a real mess of this. The federal government doesn't want to step up and legalize it, but then the state's going to step in and say, well, in lieu of the fact you won't force it, we'll do something else. And it's kind of rare to see that, I think. I certainly wish that, I would have something more definitive to go on as far as the town's feelings on this. Forget about me. This signature is on behalf of all the people of this town, 20,000+ people, 15,600 voted, whatever. Then that's what my signature is. It's them endorsing you, not me. So I have to be very careful about it. There are times when we have to make decisions on behalf of the town. It's just part of the procedure, or something requires it. But you're asking for an endorsement that's not required, that I'm aware of. I mean, the Department of Public Health, have they advised you to get this letter of recommendation? Has anybody told you this would be a good idea for you to do?
Yes, there's an attachment section on my application that I wouldn't say it's a requirement, I would say it's added. It's a point style application, so as many points as you get puts you in a better favor of obtaining this permit. So not having it doesn't mean we'd be disqualified.
Right.
However, there's points that we would be missing out on.
Okay. And I know that puts you in a tough spot. Somebody's trying to advise you to, help grease the wheels here, and I wasn't really directing that at you as much as them. If they don't need it and don't require it, don't ask for it. And I think to be fair to you and everybody, you should only ask for what is required.
Right.
And then let everybody else use your imagination if that's happening. So I'd be a little disturbed if somebody from the Department of Public Health was saying, I advise you to do this, even though we don't require it. I don't think that's them doing their jobs right.
I agree.
Now, getting back to what Selectman Knowlton said, certainly I wish more people would turn out to vote. And I'm trying to use a litmus test as to whether or not I should give you my signature here. And I certainly want to reward those people who do take time to vote. Of all the people in Middleborough who voted in that last election, that statewide election, 69% were in support of medical marijuana dispensaries. 42% were against it. In election results, that's a pretty good resounding for and against. And I think those people who vote should, I should do everything in my power to hear their voices. But again, that's a far cry from somebody saying, but I want it in my town. I think you could make the same argument for something like casino or something where people know we need the revenue to hopefully alleviate tax burden on the people, but then you ask them if you want it in your town. It's a whole different question. However, we don't, I think we have a town, well, we have a town election coming up in April. I guess we could put a non-binding question on there and really kind of get the flavor of the people, but only 10% show up. But, I have to hear what the people said in the vote. 6,900 people said that they support a medical marijuana use in facilities that are well regulated, and I have to hear that, because that's not about me, it's about the voters and what my constituents said, and 69% of them who chose to vote said they support what you're trying to do. But I would, at the same time, say to you that I'm saying to myself is don't read into that too much. If you do not run this as a tight ship, I think you'll find this town will turn on you right quick, including a lot of those 6,900 people that gave you their endorsement on a statewide vote.
Understood.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank you for the positive gesture of coming in and trying to contribute to the community through the police station. I think it shows that you're honest and you're sincere, and I will be supporting you.
Thank you.
Well,
I appreciate everybody's comments.
well, I'm not done yet.
Okay.
But probably I'm one of the more conservative people in town. I think people mostly know that. But my initial thought on this, when the first vote went through, was, what the hell are these people thinking? But you have to look at all the avenues. You have to look at all pieces of it. Mr. Quell mentioned something that's very important. If you stray from what we're doing, what's supposed to be done, be on you like a dog on a bone. Close you right up.
I'm on board.
I don't have a problem with that. You don't have a problem with that. That's good. I've been against the concept for a long time. And I don't say that just to be one of those, not in my backyard people. I have dealt with my own forms of addiction, and it's a hell of a battle. But then I had to look at this, and I had to actually listen to the people out there, too. And I do that all the time. I do listen to people all the time. And one of the people I listened to was Hal Brown. Now, Hal and I are not drinking buddies, I can tell you that. We are on the opposite sides of the rainbow. But he talked about his wife going through a very distressing, catastrophic illness, which eventually took her life. And maybe this could have helped her. I've had my own problems, my own situation with cancers, and I don't know, maybe this is the better solution. The chemotherapy certainly didn't look good to me. I don't think it's a cure, but when it gets to that point, I have to take my addiction piece out of it, and I have to look at it from a humanitarian point of view. And sometimes, well, that's hard, because you have to face that demon head on. So, as I was against this in the beginning, I had to look at it from a different point of view. I don't know, maybe it's just I'm a little older now, and, I got more years behind me than I have ahead of me, and who knows what the future is to bring. So I might be one of your clients, I don't know.
Hope not.
But,
Very happy.
and I hope not too. I hope we never have to meet each other, but professionally. But who am I to say no? I've seen the other side of it. I've seen the medical side of it. That's a tough road. That's a real tough road. So I have actually had to change my vote on this to a yes vote. I've told people a lot tonight that they never know about me, which will probably make them wonder why the hell they ever voted for me, but they'll deal with that later, I guess. So it's not been an easy decision. Some decisions we make on this board are fairly simple, but this one's not been an easy one. So for me, I am switching to a yes vote on this. But I also want to hear the folks. I imagine there's some folks out there that want to speak to this.
Megan McDonald, 14 Wilder Street, Middleborough.
Good evening.
I am a person that has had issues in the past with certain things, but I will tell you now, there is no way in Hades that I will condone any use of any kind of drug substance in this town. I support people who are going through issues and will try and fix them, but I will be damned if I see any bit of use of marijuana in this town. End of story.
Thank you.
Judy Bigelow Costa. First of all, I just want to get a couple of things clear before I say something. Isn't it mandatory that we have to accept it if it comes?
You cannot prohibit it.
Yeah, we can't prohibit it.
Okay.
The only thing we could do is to zone it to a specific area.
That's what I
We
thought.
cannot say, no, you can't come to town.
That's what I thought. Okay. Also, I think we're all beginning to realize there are massive, massive changes coming down the pike with Medicare, Medicaid, Obamacare, you name it. There are massive changes coming up. I've already begun to see a situation in my own family that I would like to point out as a Medicare situation. My mother is 87 years old. She's muscular degenerative. She's going deaf. She's in bed 23 out of 24 hours a day. She has been on Percocet and prednisone for the last 35 years. She is in chronic pain. Her doctor has recently been told to take her off prednisone and Percocet. Okay? She's in chronic pain. Is there any doubt that she's already hooked on these? No, there's no doubt. But she's going to be 87 years old in December. Does it really matter whether she's taken off of these because she's addicted to them or not? I don't think so. My point is this. I think that the only way we're going to be able to satisfy this is with a program like being offered by Mr. Shaw. I think it's the greatest thing going because it will be regulated. I have no doubt that there might be people that are going to try to break the rules, but don't they anyways? I think they do. So my point is this. If we're asked to support this, then we need to support this because who knows how many people are going to be down to the same situation in a few years as my own mother is.
Thank you.
Diane Stewart, 13 Carmen Park Drive. I would ask you guys to sign a letter of supporting this business on a purely financial basis. I think that having a dispensary here would bring some revenue into the town that we desperately need. And also, after hearing all the stories about how it could help people, I think we could be on the forefront of something for once in Middleborough. And Mr. McKinnon, I appreciate how you changed your mind. I think that you don't often see that in politicians. So I just appreciate willingness to be able to see both sides of the issue and actually acknowledge that you changed your position at some point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Bond, 8 Rock Street. Mr. Knowlton, I respect your view. I don't agree with it, but I respect it and that you hold to it. He could be coming in here wanting to sell Percocets and Vicodins and all the other things, but they're already sold at the CVS down the street. I appreciate the fact that you've changed your mind. When I sat up there, that's a hard thing to do. But I think you did it for the right reasons. There's also other reasons. A market has opened up. There just happens to be a market. There's a demand for it. He supplies the demand. If I understand what Mr. Frawley saw when he went down to visit one of these dispensaries, it's not just sort of, you walk in there and some guy says, "Hey, dude." It's it's not like an Amsterdam cafe, where you can just walk in and buy yourself your bong tea or whatever it is you're going to do.
Is that how they do it?
I don't know. I haven't been to Amsterdam. I was watching a Happy Madison movie. But the point to me is, we have liquor stores that open at 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning. We have some of the bars around here that do the same thing. The fact that there are other evils out there doesn't justify having an additional one. But as you recognize, I think, Mr. Chairman, this is not about doping people up and having them high on the streets. It's about basically providing or finding medicinal use out of marijuana being distributed in a manner which I still don't understand why. I do understand legally why not in a CVS, because it's not a prescription drug and it's not FDA approved, although many of the people at the FDA have smoked it. It would seem to me that that from a business perspective, if it's safe, if it's safely done, it's a product that's needed, it's something that people get recommended for instead of prescribed for to ease their pain, I don't see a reason why it shouldn't be here. And I appreciate the board's thought on it.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Brian Giovanni. I live at 89 Rocky Meadow. And Mr. Nolan, I agree with you because of one reason. Unfortunately, the Controlled Substance Act of 1970 still forbids the sale of marijuana. It's been upheld by the Supreme Court in 2001 against medicinal use. It was then further upheld in 2005 until the federal government withdraws that law. And there's already legislation trying to withdraw it right now. There's a U.S. representative from Colorado. I think it's funny how the executive board of our town would be supporting the violation of federal laws overtly and actually saying, hey, go violate federal laws. And I understand Massachusetts and about 30-something other states have already approved either medicinally or even recreationally in 2 states, I believe. But until the federal government steps up, I wouldn't support it until that time. And I agree with what you said about Hal Brown and what Betty went through. absolutely, and I know others who could have used it. I know others who have used it for medicinal use, not through some script. But at this point, to support the violation of federal law just kind of is wrong.
Well, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts didn't, the Attorney General from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, who was the top cop and who's the one who could say, oh, guys, you can't do this, didn't say that. So if she didn't stop it.
SCOTUS can, and SCOTUS has. Actually, it has been. The United States v. Oakland cannabis distribution, as well as the Gonzales-Ramos case in 2005. The Supreme Court actually has more authority, I believe, than the Attorney General. But
well, unless the Supreme Court comes in and says you guys are against the law, then we can say, sorry, fellas, you can't come here because, you know, it's out of our hands. But the state, well, the state, who
yet they allow it
we get
in
everything
23
is
other
saying,
states.
What's that?
They allow it in 23 other states.
I understand that, but in 2005, the Supreme
So
Court said...
well, don't say that the Supreme Court has made this illegal when it hasn't.
No, the Supreme Court doesn't make laws illegal. The federal government and the
Right, well, it is
Congress does.
It's
They
allowed in
interpret the
23
laws.
states. So to say that we're in direct violation of federal law, I don't agree with that.
But it's against federal law.
It's against federal law.
And
the
the federal
United
law
States
is allowing
Controlled
it to happen.
Substance Act of 1970, upheld by the
And
Supreme Court.
it's being allowed. Washington State is going to make it legal, I believe, this week for recreational use. And the federal government has stated that they're going to allow it to happen.
Actually, I believe...
So when you accuse this executive board of violating federal law, I have a disagreement with that.
I didn't say you're violating. What I said is you're supporting the violation of. And the
I'm
President of the
supporting the
United
laws of this
States, if he does
Commonwealth.
not wish to enforce the laws of the federal government, which he swore an oath to do, that's his fault.
Now
not
we're getting
mine.
a little off topic.
But this is actually the existing law. It is an existing law federally. But I just brought it up to your attention. That's the only reason why I wouldn't support this. Other than that, I'd support it.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, it's me again. Now I'm coming as a nurse. I've been a nurse for 30 years.
Me again is...
Darlene Parsons.
I'm
live on
sorry,
Rocky
yeah.
Meadow.
Short-term memory loss.
Talked to you about the trees before, now I'm talking about this.
Trees and
Trees and drugs,
smaller
the same
trees,
thing,
yeah.
right? So I've been a nurse for 30 years. I've seen all sorts of things. I've seen a lot of patients suffer. I had a girlfriend who died of breast cancer, and she was given in the hospital Marinol, which is a legal pill that is the same thing, gives the same munchies or whatever. She had a problem with her appetite and so forth, so the doctor prescribed Marinol, but that's very controlled. It's usually given in the hospital, so forth. As far as marijuana is concerned, it would have helped her tremendously. A lot of these people that I see going through chemotherapy with the nausea and vomiting that are home, this would help them with their appetite and so forth, and also with their pain. And as far as the federal government not allowing it, it's probably because they can't figure out how to tax it.
You are aware that the American Medical Association is not in favor of medicinal marijuana?
Right, yes. But Marinol, which is in pill form, they have no problem with. It's just like I said, all the politicians can't figure out how to tax it.
Well, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has figured out how to tax it.
Already?
Chapter 64K has stated for every ounce of marijuana, there's a $3.50 tax. And they've also got taxes for other substances in there, too. So Massachusetts is way ahead of the curve on this. Mr. Spataro.
Chairman, Steve Spataro, 24 School Street. Maybe I could ask the applicant. I had also heard about the pill form of marijuana. So I did have people ask me, what's the significant benefit to the grown leafy form versus that of the pills? So if you folks wouldn't mind providing that additional value.
Brian Crandall. I'm with the Green Harvest Group as well. So there's a lot of studies out there around the difference between the cannabinol pill as well as, the flowered format, right? So there's a lot more chemicals inside of marijuana that need to be studied. There's over 50 oils and compounds that are believed to have medicinal benefit. The pill format only isolates 2 of those compounds and has been found in clinical studies to not alleviate nearly as well the symptoms associated with cancers and some of the other ailments. It hasn't worked nearly as well in scientific studies, right? So.
You guys will have How many forms of this available at the dispensary?
We'll have the pure flower form, we'll have edibles, and we'll have tinctures and concentrates. So smoking isn't the only avenue of ingesting this. You'll be able to take small drops under your tongue, like you would cough medicine or something, or eat a form of food or lozenge to alleviate pain. And I just wanted to say, this book, Marijuana Gateway to Health, is a great book, and the Timothy Walsh Foundation will donate 10 books to the town for any, we can leave it somewhere that people can sign them out and really find out some studies that have been suppressed in this country due to politics and big lobbying money in the pharmaceutical world. But studies that have been done in the U.S. and outside of the U.S. proving that this is a wonderful, wonderful medicine.
You're going to contribute 10 copies of that?
I'll contribute 10 copies to the town so that
Yeah.
people will have a chance
Yeah,
to
those
come
sent to
read
the
it.
library?
It's a wonderful...
Joe? You have those sent to the library?
Why don't we have them sent here, and then we can arrange for them to be...
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank
Any other questions?
you. Any other comments or questions?
Just one.
Yes, sir.
Tim, are you aware there are now at least 2 places in Massachusetts where an individual can go plunk down $199 and walk out with their marijuana prescription card?
I'm not sure about how that's working. I know they're going to see a licensed physician, and if I'm not a licensed physician to say whether you can or not, so it's hard for me to speak on that. If they're doing something outside of the law, that's their license that they're going to lose. The state's doing a great job as far as rolling this out. That's one of the things that will get stricter come January 1. They've got a lot of regulations and certifications that the doctors that are going to be recommending this in the years to come will have to go through. And they're trying to put a lot of checks and balances out there so that if there is a doctor doing the wrong thing, they will be taken care of. But that's beyond my control. I just want to make a facility where someone can come safely, get the medicine that a licensed doctor did say that they deserve or need.
Anything else, John?
No, I'm done.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve a letter of support to the Timothy Walsh Foundation, DBA Green Harvest Wellness.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, could
I
we
would like
also
to-
add to that the authorization of the chair to sign that, as well as council's recommended that we turn this into a simple agreement, that we could also authorize the chair to sign?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so we have 4 for and 1 against. Okay, thank you.
Good luck, gentlemen.
Now, next item on the agenda is a discussion about High Point. Mr. Knowlton, you wanted to have a chat about this?
Yes, I wasn't sure whether we needed to do this now or give notice. My suggestion was that I would like to put forth a letter of support for the High Point Treatment Center in the same fashion that the board put forth this letter for Tim Shaw.
Okay. I think that's a good idea, but can we hold off just a little bit on this? Because we want to see how, we don't want to trample another board's authority. But
Right. My concern is that the High Point people are moving forward with the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that support from this board would help in moving that process forward.
Their next meeting
is December
18th?
12th.
12th? Okay. All right.
And we could do it next week. That would be more than enough time so people can...
We'd like to have people
think
put
about
their
it.
thoughts together as to, Charlie, you were going to say something? Did I cut you off?
There's a study still being worked on for the zoning board about the economic impacts. I'm pretty certain that the 12th is not going to be a night where everything is determined either. I think there's still a ways to go before they get to the point of issuing a permit. So I would urge you to wait to see the study, because obviously the economic impact is something that I think you should take into consideration before you take any action. And I think you do have plenty of time before you have to weigh in on this.
Do you feel comfortable with that, John?
Not really. I would like this board to go on record. I think we've heard plenty of information about High Point over the past almost a year now. I know a lot of us have attended a lot of the zoning board meetings. I know a number of us have toured the High Point facilities in other towns, and I think we have enough information to make a recommendation as a board at this point.
What kind of, in this kind of an operation coming into town, the Walsh Foundation is coming in as they are going to be paying real estate taxes. They're not paying real estate taxes, if that comes to pass. High Point, of course, being a nonprofit, would not be paying real estate taxes.
Right, and they have already, High Point has already indicated that they are more than willing to do payment in lieu of taxes.
Right, they've indicated that. What I'd like to do, though, I think we need to get a better idea of what kind of indication we need to see. Because, first of all, we really don't know the impacts of what that's going to be. I mean, the surface impacts are police and fire. But then the subordinate impacts of the real estate tax loss in the area, not that they can do anything about that, but there'll be a tax loss to people who own property in that area, somewhat.
Compared to the value loss they're experiencing right now, having a rotting building in the middle of town.
Right, different. There'll be, one of my concerns is, I think it's a great idea as a treatment facility, but their service area being from Route 95 and 128 down through the Cape, I don't want to have their patients treated and then just released at the door.
Right.
I want to see them go back to the hospital. They're going to be coming here from a hospital.
And I think
so I want to see them go back to the hospital.
That concern has been addressed.
I don't think it has.
I believe the representative from High Point has talked about how they do have release plans, and no one gets released without an exit plan. So I believe that there's been motion made to address that.
But I want to make sure that it's in writing that they go back to, not just, well, Timmy's going to come pick me up, and then who knows what happens. But I would like to see the person, when they're discharged, I mean, of course, unless they're local people, that's one thing, but a person who's discharged gets taken back to where they came from. So if a person from Weymouth, they go back up to South Shore Hospital, and they get discharged through the emergency room in South Shore Hospital. I think this is important to me. We've got our own issues, we don't need to compound our own issues.
Mr.
Yes?
Chair, I have a comment or a question. If they outline what they intend to do for their discharge policy, and which they have said that they would actually make sure that somebody is transported away. They said that the last meeting, if they're not being handed over to a family member and they know where they're going. They also said that they're going to have a security guard there, I believe, just to put people's minds at ease. And they also indicated that they will, for any financial impact on the town, once that study comes back, have a pilot payment that they're willing to make to the town if they put these things in writing. Would you feel comfortable about talking about it then?
I'd feel a lot more comfortable if I could see what they were willing to put forward. Because words
mean nothing.
Mean nothing unless they're on paper.
And written by an intelligent lawyer.
So where do we have to go for that? No.
Apparently Boston for $4.40 an hour.
$10,000. Jesus.
$10,000 worth, right? Okay.
Mr. Quill?
Well, I mean, I understand where Selectman Nolan's coming from in a lot of ways. I mean, let's remind ourselves, we just endorsed a marijuana dispensary without even knowing where it's going.
You know where it's going.
No, we don't. We have an idea where it may or may not go.
It can only go in one area.
Where?
Where we zoned it.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. We don't know exactly where. I mean, it's going to go somewhere near.
There is a purchase and sales that's been signed.
Is it? Okay. I didn't know that.
All right.
Okay, but I think all he's asking is, you know, I mean, if he wants to make a motion, I certainly don't think we should block it. It does seem a little premature because there's some zoning things that I would like to hear about. But let's remember that this thing was a huge blight on our community. And other than High Point, there is absolutely no plan B for this thing. There's nobody else out there. I mean, it's not my first choice either. It's not, okay? But does anybody have a plan B? Anything that's going to go in this place other than High Point? What are we waiting on? What if they don't meet your tax wants and needs? You going to say no? And let it go back to what it was before?
I will certainly say no.
And let it go back to that? That thing was disgusting. And people have to live next to that. And who knows who's going in there, having parties. Look, guys, it's High Point or nothing at this point. So would I be willing to wait, you know, a week or two on this? Yes. But at some point, if they're looking for, you know, a letter of support, I would be willing to sign that. So if we're going to put this off, let's put it off for a small amount of time, please.
Just a couple of things. One, I know that I have coming down the road a client that will be applying to the zoning board for a particular type of business. What is your process for me getting a letter of support for that project? Do you have one?
No.
All right, I just want to know whether or not this is something that I don't recall ever doing something like that. The difference between this and the marijuana facility is this is to a state agency that wants to see that there's support of the community. This is not cross-pollinating between boards, if I understand correctly. So when you're doing it for the dispensary, you're giving it basically to another entity that's deciding how to regulate the dispensaries and where to put them. This one is a sister board or brother board, depending on a person of relation board between the two of you. So when somebody else comes in the future and asks for this board to have support for their project before the zoning board, before it's done doing its due diligence, I'd suggest that you folks have a procedure because no one would want to end up in an equal protection problem. The other end is that as to your as to the concept of the discharge plan, I can tell you that at least on one occasion in my office, I had a client come in and explain to me their desire to sue High Point for dropping their child off near, not at, but somewhere near home. They paid enough for a cab to get there and gave him a bag of drugs to get home. So it's not those types of things are not made-up stories. I've heard other stories, but there's one that I've dealt with individually in this town. So I would recommend, my view would be to recommend for you folks to wait for some more of the information to come in. And if you choose to do a letter of support for them to another board that's making the decision, I would hope that you would give the same courtesies to other people that are coming in to get businesses past the zoning board.
Mr. Chairman,
Good evening.
My name is Neil Rosenthal. I live at 78 Cedar Street. For 20 years, I lived on Forest Street in downtown Middleborough, so I'm pretty much familiar with the area. I've been on the B&I Commission, Business and Industrial Commission, for a very long time, and on several occasions, our function was to go against other town boards who were going in the wrong direction. One was when Christmas tree shops was coming in. There was an awful lot of pressure and an awful lot of misguided town officials who felt that that would not be a good fit for Middleborough. Another one was NES, which is up in the near the Rotary in the industrial park. There was a lot of folks, particularly on the planning board, who didn't feel that was a good fit for Middleborough. So what the B&I has done on several occasions, and probably the only time that we've been effective, is in more or less bucking what some town officials get in their heads is a bad fit for Middleborough. Now, anyone who thinks that property values would go down when you take a blighted building in a blighted area and you turn it into something with a $12 million investment and basically an up and functioning type of business with 200 employees and state of the art. My sense is that you're probably a little bit daft, because it's clear as a bell that those real estate values will do nothing but go up. I mean, it's just ridiculous, frankly, to assume the otherwise. The other concern I have here is this so-called economic impact study. Consultants, and I learned this the hard way, come into town with a suitcase, and the first thing they try and do is find out what the prevailing sentiment or the mindset is of those who basically are pulling the strings, and then they inevitably and invariably echo that mindset. So what we'll hear from the consultants, and we already heard some of it the other night, I was at the meeting, is a tremendous amount of tentativeness, because obviously there's someone in a position of authority, I'm not quite sure who doesn't like this thing, doesn't want this thing. And that's why it's gone to this economic impact study to begin with. Now, I've been a businessman as well as being on the B&I for many years, and I can tell you that there's nothing of a business impact that they can tell you that you don't already know. Basically, you're talking about a 200-employee business coming to town. You're talking about a multiplier effect of all the money they spend in town. You're talking about them fixing up a blighted facility and turning it into a productive business. You're talking about the people who work there using the town businesses, et cetera, and certainly downtown Middleborough could use more business. And you're talking about all kinds of good things happening from this. The big fear, of course, that people have is that somehow the loonies will get loose and destroy Middleborough or attack us or God knows what. But you know, I don't think there's much chance at all of that happening when you really look at the folks they treat, and they're not violent criminals and all this type of thing. There certainly is a need for it. And as far as our services, you know, that we have, police and fire, you can always make the argument that those are inadequate, because clearly if you're going to bring in growth, the services you have are always inadequate for that growth. Now, if, for instance, we didn't have sufficient water to supply these people, or we weren't able to provide the sewerage to supply these people, or it was some kind of noxious use where there was going to be like a car crusher next to someone's house, or something horrible, why then obviously you'd have to look at it. None of these things apply here. We clearly had a hospital there. This is a very limited hospital. For many years after that hospital closed, we wanted another hospital and would have done anything at all to get another hospital. And the only problem with a regular hospital is they have something called an emergency room, and that emergency room attracts all kinds of bad people. People have been wounded in knife fights, people looking for drugs, there were cops there. None of this applies to this particular hospital. So in a very great sense, this is actually superior to what we had before, and what, once it closed, we tried incredibly hard to get. The reason that Middleborough never acquired this building when we might have had a use for it was we were absolutely set on having another hospital facility of some kind go into that building. And we got Cranberry Specialty Hospital at one point, and they had a walk-in clinic and all of that type of thing. Couldn't make any money with it. It didn't last. And since then, the building has just fallen into decay. Now, as part of the building committee for the police station, we looked at that site before we decided to put the new police station behind the existing police station, and found that that building is very, very limited as far as its reusability. It has low ceilings, 7 feet, it's built like a vault, and truthfully, if we had decided to use that site for a police station, had the selectmen in their wisdom decided to acquire that site, which could have been negotiated, why then that building would have been torn down and we would have started from scratch. So I believe that this is the last gasp for this particular building, and that if we don't do this, that we're going to be looking at this thing for the next 15 years, and eventually it's going to be demolished. Now, a couple years ago, maybe longer than I thought, the town had the opportunity to get a $2 million grant from the feds to establish a town-run ambulance service and expand the fire department. And the Board of Selectmen ultimately turned that down because they felt that we couldn't support it on an ongoing basis. At least that's my assumption. The reason were never given, but that clearly was a concern that the board had. And one of the ways that you change all of that and get to a point where you can support a town-run ambulance service or a bigger fire department, and we need that because right now we have substandard response times for ambulance and fire department everywhere but within a small radius of downtown. When the North Middleborough station is open, that improves dramatically, but it still doesn't cover East Middleborough. So we have a substandard condition. So if we don't want to grow because, God forbid, we're going to strain our resources, we'll never change that. We'll be like that forever. The only way out of these kind of things is economic growth. Now, in the long run, if you have economic growth, people will come live here because it becomes desirable, and once again you establish an equilibrium. But in the short run, it certainly is helpful, and in the long run, at the very least, you have more political clout as a community because you have more people living here, and the state folks take more notice of bigger populations. So if, for instance, we have this hospital come in, they have something called private ambulance transports. I guess you heard about this the other night. And they would probably contract with Brewster Ambulance to provide this because the town has no ambulance service. But if the town had an ambulance service, the town could contract to supply these private transports, and that would change the whole equation. So looking at some economic impact, and I mentioned to the so-called consultants at that point that they ought to, in fact, include that in their study, that potential. So if you're just going to look at the fact that we only have X police, we only have X fire, that none of the money's going to be spent here or God knows what, you're going to come up every time with the idea that this isn't viable, feasible, whatever. But if you just use common sense, you can see that this is very feasible and very viable. And these folks would own this building, and they would put $12 million into this building. This is no small amount of money for a facility like that, a blight right in the heart of Middleborough. And we can eradicate that and move forward with something that will probably be nothing but positive for this town. And I'm fearful because of I wouldn't be normally fearful, but I'm fearful because of this so-called study. And these consultants, that the waters will be poisoned, and they will come back with the very best and extremely tentative push in the right direction for this, when in fact I think that we should be really positive about this. I agree with you completely. I think we have tons of information. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Board of Selectmen as the CEOs of Middleborough basically expressing the fact that they think that this would be good for the town economically, and expressing that opinion in a letter to the Board of Appeals. I certainly am not suggesting that we take away their authority or that we usurp their authority or their prerogative, but as I said to you before, my position on the B&I, and those of us who are on there, on several occasions have had to fight tooth and nail against other boards who, for whatever reason, were recalcitrant when it came to permitting uses that clearly were in the best interest and positive for the future of Middleborough. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. Good evening.
I clearly appreciate everybody's comments so far.
You are?
Steve Spataro, 24 School Street. Very close to the hospital itself. If they put $12 million into the building, and that won't make the market value of the building $12 million. If it's $3 to $4 million, that's $50,000 to the town. If the services are anywhere close to what the police chief had mentioned, $50,000 is in half the burden cost of a single policeman. So while as the policymakers of the town, clearly you have to take a stand on pretty much every issue that comes before other boards. But from a negotiation perspective, Mr. Diaglio asked for 24-hour police protection. That was one of the criteria by which he sat in the seat that Alan and said, I won't be for this unless we get 24-hour police protection. And that was not a commitment that the folks from High Point could make. They asked for additional parking. That was not a commitment that the people from High Point were willing to make. So from a negotiation perspective, if you send a letter of support, then it's like, hey, I've got support from your selectmen. Why should I be negotiating with you? If you really believe that this is in the best interest of the town, why wouldn't you get your pound of flesh? We've negotiated pounds of fleshes from other people all the time. The idea of it being ridiculous that this would have an impact on people's property. I'm not a real estate professional, but I did reach out to real estate professionals. I presented it at the Zoning Board of Appeals. The consensus that I got from professionals in town that make their livelihood on selling real estate, appraising real estate, giving mortgages on real estate, said that the impact was 10 to 15%, and the distance radius of the hospital was eye shot to a half a mile. So I've asked what was the real estate value, commercial and residential, within a quarter of a mile, not the half a mile, not eye shot, halfway in between. And I didn't take the 10 to 15%, I took the 10%, and that was $187 million total value, which would be negatively impacted by 10% or $18 million. So shouldn't we get, if these people were to come to town, shouldn't we get something from them versus ask the residents? 64%, I can pass this out to you, but the Economic Institute that's published by Cornell University did a study that said 64% of middle America has their personal wealth in their home. So if you're never selling your home, that's fine. But if you're a retiree across the street from the hospital and you're going to take a 10% hit on the value of your property when you go to sell it, that's real money that's coming out of your pocket. So I guess I would ask you folks to wait to see what the study says. I would ask you folks to think about what you would want to get from High Point before you make a recommendation in support and negotiate from a point of weakness. People are concerned about the negative impact. That piece of property, I think we forget, and Stephen Allen and I probably remember, the rest of you folks may or may not. That property's been under the control of the same person for 20 years. Last time that somebody tried to buy it, the purchase price was $2.2 million. It only has an assessed value for $400,000. So some person controlled whether or not there was anything else that could be done with the property. And nothing could be done with the property unless it was $2.2 million in their pocket. Nobody's going to pay 5 times more than the value of the property was. We weren't willing to pay it for a town. I think, Neil, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think last week you mentioned, as you did tonight, that 20 years from now, we'd be bulldozing that place because if High Point doesn't come in, then nobody else will. What would be better? An empty lot that's bulldozed and grassed, that has no burden on services, or somebody whose services we don't fully assess yet. Your point about the fire department. If we could get them to say that they would contract with the town for all ambulance service, and we could afford it then to have an ambulance service in town, why wouldn't we wait for the study? Why wouldn't we negotiate from a point of strength rather than give them a letter of support right now when they haven't offered us anything? They haven't offered in lieu of tax payment. If they do, it doesn't cover enough. So they clearly have to pay for more services. Maybe a little hardball might get them to be able to do it. The other concern is we always talked about, well, that area is depressed, that area is depressed. And if on the chance that the real estate people are right, why do you add cumulative problems on a situation that's already challenging? So again, I'm not saying that, John, you're not right. I'm not saying that you might not want to give a letter of support at some point in time. I'm just saying wait until the study's done. Those people sit on a board, they meet twice a month. They're doing their due diligence as you are, and one of the things that they always do is they do a study to try to get a level of understanding. And yes, consultants always want to please the boss, but those people are logical thinkers like you are, and they'll see through that. Just give them a chance to get the study done. Take a look at it. Take a read of it. Say, do you agree with it? Is there something that you could negotiate from when you see the study? Let them give Steve McKinnon, from a point of strength, a written commitment that people will be sent back. Let them answer the question, what happens when somebody's insurance runs out? This is not a philanthropic organization. Let's say you're not cured in a week. Let's make sure they go back from where they came so we don't have a person that's still got a problem on the streets of Middleborough. And people do have a concern for that. So again, especially people that live around that area. I'm just asking you to wait a little bit and take a look at that study first, and then figure out what you want, that you want to ask the zoning board to put in any kind of agreement before they give somebody a red light, a green light, excuse me, to go forward with the project. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I'm certainly not asking this board to give a blanket endorsement. I'm simply stating that a letter from you saying that your notion is that the economic impacts of this and the growth potential for the town would be positive, providing they can negotiate all these other issues, clearly parking and all the things you talk about, the pilot, the transportation issues, everything else. The other thing is that I do have an example of a building where people were opposed to its reuse. It was called the Washburn Mill. And I happened to be on the Washburn Mill Reuse Committee. And we had someone who was willing to take it to basically rehab that into apartments. And of course, the Washburn Mill would still be there, and it was sort of a buffer towards that end of Middleborough. Well, anyway, at the very last minute, this ringer came in. I'm not going to mention who, but prompted by some people in Middleborough, some business folks who didn't like the idea of having apartments down there near the railroad tracks. And he basically came in with a plan for reuse of the building, was going to demolish it down to the first floor, and then basically use that as a historical basis for his reconstruction. Instead, he came in and took the whole thing right down to nothing before anybody could stop him. And there it sits. And for 15 years or thereabouts, we've been trying to do something with that piece of land. Guess what? No luck. So we lost a historical structure. We lost a tax basis. We lost the basis for basically redoing that as an apartment house. And what we have today is nada because of that. So that's one example of not taking a project that looked good. And I have to admit, the other guy was smooth. But when push came to shove, the intention was not legitimate. And had we gone with the other fella, I think we'd have a building there that would be a credit to Middleborough today. So you have to know when to say yes, I guess is all I'm saying, because oftentimes if you say no, the result isn't necessarily a good one. Thank you.
There was one other thing that we lost. We lost the opportunity to have Massasoit Community College, Leslie College, and one other that I can't remember. But we lost that opportunity to have 3 colleges there and a number of smaller buildings there.
Where?
At where the old hospital is.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, if you wait, maybe one of the things that you can get, we talk about employment, 200 jobs. Maybe we can get a hard answer from them on how many jobs that they will guarantee will go to Middleborough residents. So again, if we wait for the study, we see what the impact of the study is. You folks maybe even have a joint meeting with the Zoning Board of Appeals if the project is something that moves forward, and you get what the town deserves to offset the comments when we say, what are the hallmark stores? What are the landmarks in Middleborough? What are the anchor stores? A couple of banks, a couple of churches, and a unique facility. So I'm not saying that it's not a good run business. I have talked to people from High Point. They say it's a very well run institution. The question is in that location and the services that are there. Let's find out what the true impact is, and then, because there clearly would be things, if it's a negative, that you would want to ask for. And then you have to look and sell to the resident. We need to find out from the consultant, is what I heard from the real estate agents true or false in general? The person from High Point says there's all kinds of high-end housing that's coming up around Plymouth. I got a different story. So, my sample size was relatively small. Let's find out, in fact, they're reaching out to other communities, and the reason the study wasn't done last week was they said that there were other communities with facilities like this that was bringing additional information to them: police, fire, economic development, services impact, et cetera, with a full look at the whole thing. You guys can figure out along with them if it is a good idea. What do you need to get? We talked about the ambulance service for a long time. If they were just at one point, if they were willing to do that, and it made it economically viable, the only reason that we turned it down was that it wasn't economically viable in the long term. If it had been something that would allow us to make money with the town and cover all the expenses, we would have done it, but it didn't. Maybe this is one of the things that would do it, but we don't know until we get that study, and we don't know until you guys negotiate from a point of strength, which, again, I don't think would be that possible if you support it immediately.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
I don't even know if we can legally vote on a letter of support tonight. The agenda states that we're going to have a discussion. It doesn't mention anything about a vote. I know one person in particular who would be more than happy to file an open meeting law complaint if we move forward in this fashion. I think it's clear from the discussions we've had and the disagreements or the varying opinions that a little more research should be done before we take any type of vote of support. I'm also extremely cautious about a letter of support to another board. I have the utmost respect for the ZBA and every member on that board, and I don't think it's our position to tell them what to do. So it would have to be a very carefully worded letter if we do decide to move forward in that vein. I'd like to at least, I would be more comfortable voting on this if I had more information. I've been to every meeting that they've been to. I've visited the facility. I've spoken to Representative Daniel from High Point, but there are still some lingering questions in my mind as well. I mean, I honestly don't think we can vote on it, period, just because of open meeting law.
Valid point, yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
My intent is not to undercut the Zoning Board of Appeals. My intent is not to negotiate in their stead. I think that's come to them. I appreciate Mr. Spataro's comments, but that was absolutely not my intent at all, to have this board negotiate with High Point. All I want to do is send a letter of support, information that the zoning board can then use to help them make their decision.
I think people have to decide if there's issues around this that they, we heard a lot of information here tonight. Could impact how you think about, what you would want to have. The term "a pound of flesh," I believe, was mentioned. What that pound of flesh reflects to you, to me, or to Alan, or Lalani, or Ben, could all be different. So we want to get this all in order. Mr. Costello?
Let me just make an observation. I think what you're contemplating is somewhat unprecedented, at least in my experience. It, I've been here over 5 years. I've never seen a board take a position on a matter before the ZBA. And in the 20-odd years prior to that in 2 other communities, I've never seen it. I understand the intention. I know it's well-founded, but I think as Mr. Bond tried to indicate in his comments, what box are you opening? Because if the Board of Selectmen is going to start taking positions on this, where does it end? I think that's something you really want to think about.
Okay. So we've discussed it tonight. We can put it on a future agenda meeting for a week or 2 out, if we want to discuss it again. I want to think about what Charlie just said. Have we already opened that Pandora's box?
I personally don't think there's anything wrong with the Board of Selectmen taking a stance on an issue of this impact.
Let us put this off for a week or 2, so people could think more about it. It's reflective.
I'd like to see us...
Well, there's no reason to jump on it tonight. I mean, the only reason we did this Walsh Foundation thing was because they've got this, they're going to the EPH. They have to get all their paperwork in order. But ZBA hasn't even, there's no saying they're not, in December they won't have an answer. They may not have an answer for 2 more months, who knows?
And the High Point officials, Daniel, at the last Zoning Board of Appeals, made a clear statement saying that he was feeling a time pressure with his funding, and I just don't want to see this slip through the fingers of the town.
A week or two won't kill us, it won't kill them, and it still isn't going to make the Zoning Board of Appeals here. That's not till the middle of, the 18th of, 12th of December. So we've still got a couple weeks. And we want to make sure that we don't, like Charlie said, jump off the pier. put it off for a couple of weeks. You get time. This isn't life or death.
I'm okay with putting it off until the 16th, at our December 16th meeting, but I would like to have a draft letter that we can then discuss.
Put together something.
I shall.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just one last thing. The gentleman from High Point said that he can rehab that building for less than half it would cost him to build a new one. So I don't think he's going anyplace, because this is financially beneficial to him to want to try to make this happen. So
Well, first of all, he's not going anyplace because he's got a piece of land that's in a good location for free.
Right.
So, nobody else has owned that one person's owned that land, couldn't sell it, gave it to the institution that she was involved with, and so he gets a good piece of land for free. So
And the,
what's he gonna, I've heard one of the people in town said, well, why, I'd support this if it was in South Middleborough. Well, he's not gonna move to South Middleborough because you get that piece of land for free. Why would he buy a piece of land in South Middleborough? He's gonna move there if they put it there, if the ZBA goes along with it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
That's all right.
The chairman of the zoning board of appeals told him that the timeframe in which High Point wants to work may not be in the same timeframe that the zoning board of appeals needs to work in to do their due diligence. So they've already put him on record as far as, we have to do what we have to do. We can't take into account your financing situation.
Well, the other thing is, that's the Timothy Walsh agreement. It's in writing. This is what we got in writing from them. I think Mr. Bond mentioned that earlier about words. They look a lot better on paper. So if this guy wants to put something on paper, that helps too. He's talking. Everybody can talk. Hell, I can talk. Not on camera, but when push comes to shove, show me what you want to do for me. All right. Next item on the agenda is Town Manager's Report.
Mr. Chairman, the first item is a letter of support from many legislators, but unfortunately, the copy you have is missing 2 pages of signatures, including the signatures of all 3 of our local delegation. Representative Orr, Representative Gifford, and Representative Coulter all signed this letter as well. Unfortunately, when I reproduced it, it was double-sided, and when it was copied, it was not double-sided, so...
Mr. Chairman, can you take over? Sure. Excuse me.
So,
Does this mean I have to call my 3 state reps and apologize after I left them an email?
Oh, no, did you really?
Signed this? I did think it was kind of odd that reps hadn't signed it.
I'm very sorry that happened.
I made the question right away and was assured that everyone did, and that there were more pages to it, so just an oversight.
Yeah, we have unfortunately, our new version of the computer double-sides everything automatically, and I often try and catch it and stop it, but in this case I didn't. And I regret giving you the wrong impression. The second item, again, from Representative Orr's office was just an update on the Route 105, 495 ramp project. It's moving along. You've seen the signals go in recently, and it's getting close to completion finally. And then the last item is on the topic we discussed earlier. This was, again, a bill forwarded to me by Representative Orr's office about attempting to address some of the issues that have happened in this current round of clear cutting. And this particular bill attempts to require replanting of trees and other vegetations, in areas that were cut between January 1st and January 12 and January 1st of 14. So it attempts to do something to help the residents in our town anyway. There's also a regulation going through it used to be called the DPU, I forget its name now, but which would require first-class notification of abutters, which obviously is long overdue. And I think that's something else that we should support. So if you'd like, I could prepare letters of support on both of those items for your signature. And we could at least weigh in this way in support of, people abutting these transmission lines.
Do you want a signature from us to do that?
Yeah, if you agree, I'll draft them, letters up and bring them to the next meeting.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So moved. Do we have
Second.
to-
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's all I have tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair. Yep, through you to Charlie. Yeah, you're the chair now. Getting back to the telephone poles down by McDonald's, the information here is saying, I just want to make sure everybody hears it, that those poles are going to be removed, hopefully by the end of the year, weather permitting. So that's 5 or 6 weeks?
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
The thing about projects like this are the poles are the hardest piece to get done.
Right.
You've seen them, you've seen many projects, they're virtually complete, but for the fact that the poles still haven't been moved. And it's not a G&E issue, obviously.
Right.
It's really, it's Verizon and Comcast and the public utilities that are abysmal at getting on things like this. So, I hope that's true, but there are never any guarantees when it comes to pole removal by private utilities, unfortunately.
But they are saying they're 60% complete, and their target completion date is 3/21/14.
Right.
So, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
Just want to read one bit out of this article that you included with your town manager's report. I think they have demonstrated they will meet the minimum requirements, said Audrey Hall, who lives near the Saxonville Beach area in Framingham, where the utility did extensive tree clearing a summer ago. But I don't think anyone finds there's reason to believe that they'll go beyond that. She's talking about NSTAR. It certainly seems like this is their MO, to come in, do as little as possible, and take as much as possible.
Certainly, that's been our experience.
And someone mentioned the spraying on the Cape earlier. The state said they were fine with doing that. I didn't get to read the whole article, but the state agreed with NSTAR. So to say that we're up against a difficult process would be an understatement.
But I also think that Mr. Bond's suggestion about a town bylaw is probably a good one. We learned in doing our research this past week, they're exempt from the Wetlands Protection Act. They're also exempt from local zoning. So our WRPD bylaw to protect our water resources does not apply either. But perhaps a local town bylaw that imposes some process that they would have to follow locally that would give us and our residents, advance notice, a little leverage in terms of working with them, I think is worth pursuing, and I'll discuss that with council and see what we can come up with.
I think it's presented itself as a problem in enough towns that it's time for something like that to be looked at, definitely. I think that's a great idea.
Well, the thing is, if we can do something locally, even better, because then
Right,
at least we
exactly.
control our own destiny. These pieces of legislation are okay, but, it's got to get through the legislature, and that's, not always going to happen. But if we can do something locally that at least next time, puts some brakes on and gives us some control, I think we should do it.
I don't think anyone's going to argue against that. Oh, Steve's back, he might.
Well, I was going to say, I would like to see in that zoning or that bylaw, a requirement of notification of the abutters, just like we have any other zoning issue. When somebody comes before us, one of the first things we ask is, you have the green cards, did you send those letters to everybody? Did everybody get a letter? If they got a letter, there would be at least on notice that something's going to happen on their land. You can't control everything, but at least if they would have got notified, not door hanging thing.
Well, if they were notified, they might have been able to take proactive action. Right. Whereas when they show up and start cutting trees, and that's the first you know about it, what can you do? You can do very little.
So, yeah, it's like they did. So, where did you leave off, Mr. Vice Chairman? You still on correspondence? You haven't finished?
No, we're on town manager's report.
No, we're done.
Okay, so, what else, Mr. Town Manager? Is that it?
No, that's it, thank you.
Great report. Best I've ever heard. Okay, correspondence. Ms. Delphi?
Number 16, just, there's a job listing for, let me get down there.
The library?
Yep, the library, assistant library director, I believe it is. 30 hours a week. Every other Saturday, one night, one Sunday a month. And I still can't find it in here. This is just what I'm remembering about it. Anyway.
Number 16. I'm sorry, number 16.
Yes, it is number 16, but.
Oh, but you can't.
Way down
But you
the end.
can't, right? You have to just keep going and going and going. Anyway, contact Daniil Bowker at the library if you're interested. I'm sure on the website for the library they have the qualifications also. You know, I'm going to find it after I quit speaking.
I have the paper copy.
I got it. Actually, I do have it. Okay, so, yes, you have to have an MLS and an ALA accredited program. So if you have those, I'm sure you know what they mean. 3 years experience working in a progressively responsible professional position required, supervisory experience preferred, starting salary $23.02 an hour, in accordance with the contract between the Middleborough Library Staff Association and the town of Middleborough. And again, contact or send resumes to Daniil Bowker, Library Director, Middleborough Public Library, 102 North Main Street, and that's Middleborough, and the email is dbowker, B-O-W-K-E-R, @salesinc.org. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Quell?
Can't remember what number. This is a letter addressed to Mr. Jim. Congratulations. It's my pleasure to inform you that Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection has awarded the town of Middleborough a Sustainable Materials Recovery Program municipal grant. The town of Middleborough will receive up to $90,000 for wheeled recycling carts, up to $3,000 for education material about the new carts, and up to $90,000 for pay-as-you-go throughout the fall. Can you remind me who applied for that grant?
DPW Director.
DPW Director. Well, thank you to the DPW Director. We always get excited about receiving grant money. And I think this is a great idea. I think people will, you know, especially if people have trouble getting it out there, or people who, you know, I know we recycle as much as we can, and it's just easier to get stuff out the curb wheeled. So we'll see how this shakes out, but it's much needed money, and I think it was a great idea to apply, and hopefully it'll have a lot of benefit for our citizens. Lastly, just want, you know, not to get off subject, Mr. Chair, I just want to commend the board members. These were tough topics tonight, and they're very, very important to our town, and I know we're all very emotional about them, and I think we had some great discussions. Just as importantly, I want to take time to thank all the citizens of Middleborough who came out tonight to give their very insightful opinions on these matters that came up tonight. It's always great to see you, and it's always great to have people show up at our selectmen meetings and get to the podium and let us know how they think. So thank you again for coming out, taking time in your busy lives at 10 o'clock on a work night. It certainly is appreciated. Thank you.
Mr. Knowles?
Number 6, I can get to it here. This is from the Plymouth County Extension, the 4-H Youth Development Program. The town of Middleborough participated in the following extension-sponsored programs this year: 4-H Plant Science Sunflower Program for grades K to 2, 4-H Embryology Program, hope I'm pronouncing that right, at Mary Kay Good School, home of several 4-H clubs for the East Middleborough 4-H Clubhouse, and 4-H Exhibit Week demonstrations throughout the town. And, you know, that's money well spent by the town. And also, I wanted to mention number 3 that Ben mentioned about the sustainable materials recovery and the wheeled carts and pay-as-you-throw. I think that's excellent that we're getting that grant. And then, what's this last one? Nope, that was it.
I'm good. Everything's been covered.
Charlie, thank you for the thank the building inspector for forwarding that information. That shows our permits are down, but it shows the tracking of the permits, and that's what we want to see. So every month I can get that, that's good. Or we can get that, I should say. The trash containers, are they going to be the type that will be utilized with a future vehicle that we might be purchasing?
That's what we're contemplating. I mean, how we roll it out and what sequence, we still have to figure out. And Chris Peck and I are going to get together and go over that. Plus, part of that grant is some consulting money from the DEP to help us figure out implementation of a new system. But I'm certainly convinced that, mechanical collection is where we have to go. I think it's just, from a work safety standpoint, we have so many injuries on that trash truck.
Right.
That I think we've got to get there, and whether we get there in one step or two steps, we have to get there.
Take a section of that town at a time?
I don't know. We've still got to flesh this whole thing out, but, it is some nice support from the state, and, we'll be coming to you, in the next several months with a plan.
Good. Okay, good. All right. I don't think I have anything else. So, having nothing else to say, at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, such that the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, not to return to open session.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Knowlton.
Aye.
Mr. Frawley.
Aye.
Ms. Delphi.
Aye.
Mr. Quill.
Aye.
And Chairman votes aye. Thank you very much. We're going into executive session.